The guns in Highguard are low-key peak! Some of these designs are so bad, so over-the-top and void of logic, that they loop back around to being hilarious and awesome. I came here looking for coal, and I sure found a lot of coal. But I also found quite a few sparkling gems. At first glance, you may not think much of Highguard's guns. You may just think they're stupid and ugly, and they sure are. But the longer you examine them, the worse they get. Analyzing these guns is like jumping into a rabbit hole, because there is a never-ending amount of boneheaded mistakes and design flaws. The guns get more nonsensical and convoluted the deeper you delve. This is exactly what I live for. Highguard is a freaking goldmine of bad gun design. Dare I say, these guys have Bethesda beat for creating the weirdest and goofiest guns imaginable. To any new viewers of the channel, hi there, I'm Brandyboy, and I like to review video game guns and rank them based on the overall quality of their design. I look at these guns from both a realistic perspective and a gamer's perspective, so I consider a lot of factors, such as aesthetics, functionality, practicality, animations, technique, how fun they are to use, and of course, how cool they are. This time, we're looking at the wonderful guns of Highguard, otherwise known as Peak Guard, for being the best MOBA sci-fi high fantasy competitive 3v3 ranked battle royale capture the flag looter hero slop shooter of 2026. It's truly an amazing game. An instant classic, one of the all-time GOATs. In all seriousness, this game is absolutely abysmal. It's like the Morbius of video games. It's only enjoyable if you play it ironically. My boy Jeff Keighley hyped up this game like it was going to be bigger than Overwatch and Fortnite combined, but it ended up being the second biggest flop in gaming history, right behind Concord. It was so bad that the player count dipped to a couple hundred players just 1 month after release, and a couple weeks after that, they shut down the game entirely due to lack of players. Highguard only lasted a measly 45 days. It got deleted so quick that I couldn't even finish this video before it got shut down. I'm really glad I captured a whole bunch of footage before they pulled the plug. I stayed up all night playing with my editor so we could enjoy Highguard one final time. I was there till the very end, for I am a die-hard Highguard fan. If Highguard only has one fan left, I am that fan. And if Highguard has no fans left, then that means I am dead. Dude, this game fucking sucks so bad. I feel as if it's my duty to preserve this gameplay footage so future generations can see just how terrible this game was. Now these cursed guns are forever immortalized on my channel. I feel like I'm forgotten weapons, but for shitty video game guns. Unfortunately, Highguard is no more. But there is another epic game we can play in its stead. Introducing today's sponsor, The Division Resurgence. Basically, The Division Resurgence is the mobile version of The Division. It gives you the same experience as the main games, but it's playable on your phone and tablet, so you can play The Division anywhere you go. It's freaking awesome. It takes place in New York City just like the first game, but it features a new story with new characters and missions. Just like The Division, it's heavily focused on taking cover and slowly pushing up as you take out enemies. And at the very end, you'll encounter a boss that brings a unique challenge. There's lots of enemies, but you don't have to go at it alone. You can play with up to 3 other players in PvE, and for those looking to get sweaty, you can engage in Dark Zone PvP. The gunplay itself is very satisfying. Personally, I kinda suck at mobile game controls, so everything felt really clunky at first, but after some getting used to, it wasn't so bad. In time, I became the absolute GOAT at quickscoping. The snipers in particular are my absolute favorite. They're super fun and powerful, as they should be. If you're not a fan of the touchscreen controls, then there's no need to worry, because this game has controller support. As you would expect from a Division game, the loot is also a big highlight. You'll constantly get new gear and guns as you progress. There's plenty of cool guns to collect, and I sure like collecting cool guns. Even better, The Division Resurgence is completely free to play, and you can download it right now by using my link in the description. I gotta give a huge thanks to the guys at The Division for sponsoring this video. Now, let's get back to it.
Let's start with the big iron, the Longhorn revolver. The overall design here ain't too bad. It's got a nice intimidating silhouette to it, as a big iron should. I like the stainless finish here, but I don't like the front end. It looks like it was dipped into a plastic mold. It kind of ruins the all stainless steel look. I'm not really a big fan of the extra junk hanging off the trigger guard and the grip either. That stuff is just unnecessary, and it looks too greebly. The sight's kinda weird too. It doesn't have a physical sight or optic. It's just some magic holographic reticle that pops up when you aim. Where is this hologram coming from, and why would it be necessary? It seems overly complicated and very expensive to produce for not much benefit. I feel like a regular red dot would get the job done just fine. Does it even hold zero that well? I don't know. It's space magic, I guess. But for the most part, this sci-fi revolver looks okay. I've definitely seen worse. In terms of gameplay, well, the very first thing I noticed that's wrong is the capacity. This is clearly a 6-shot revolver, but it only holds 5 rounds? Like, what the hell? I had to recount this a couple times over just to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. But yeah, this is a 5-shot 6-shooter. Why would they make it look like a 6-shooter, and you have to reload it with 6 rounds, when you can only shoot 5? Are these guys stupid? Do they not know how to count to 6? Well, here's the thing about Highguard. The capacity for every single gun is completely wrong. The capacity is tied to the rarity of the weapon, rather than the actual size of the magazine, or the cylinder in this case. So with the low rarity variants, the capacity is lower than it should be, but with the higher rarity guns, the capacities are blatantly higher than what the gun physically holds. So that means this 6-shot revolver can either hold 5 rounds, or fucking 22. It's ridiculous. I don't have a problem with them having varying capacities for different rarities, but the model and animation should be adjusted to show the higher capacity. And the low rarity variant should come with a standard capacity, not a capacity that's lower than what's shown in the model. This revolver, for example, should start with a 6-round cylinder, but when you upgrade it to a higher rarity, it would get replaced with an 8-round cylinder. They could probably push it to 10 or 12, but the cylinder would be really big and heavy. 20 rounds especially would make it comically oversized and unwieldy. It would look really stupid. But if they actually modeled a 20-round cylinder, then I would respect it. Low-key, that would be extremely based. But you know what's really dumb? This revolver doesn't even have a rarity that holds 6 rounds. The lowest rarity starts at 5, then it immediately jumps up to 7, then 9. It skips right over 6, which is the amount it should hold. Jeez, how do you mess that up? Anyway, this revolver is chambered in .44 Magnum. You can see it right there on the back of the casings, which is a nice detail. I'll give him credit for that, but I can't give him credit for not having the casings getting struck by the firing pin. There's no dimple to show that the casings have been struck. I can't say I like how bombastic and exaggerated the recoil is either. By all means, .44 Magnum is powerful, but the recoil isn't that crazy. Especially since this is a heavy full-size revolver with a muzzle brake. The recoil would actually be quite tame, and the muzzle flip would be rather minimal. I could only see the recoil being this crazy if it was being wielded by a limp-wristed sissy liberal. If that's the case, then sure, the comically high recoil is realistic. But for a competent shooter, .44 Magnum isn't that crazy. Personally, I'm quite fond of .44 Magnum revolvers. They're very cool and very fun to shoot. The recoil is higher than most other handguns, but with a nice firm grip, it's not too bad. When hip firing, your character holds the revolver with one hand, so that would explain why the recoil is so high. But why would they opt to one-hand a .44 Magnum? That's not very optimal for recoil control and accuracy. It's far better to hold a gun with 2 hands for increased control. Well, obviously, they're one-handing it for the cool factor. Practicality be damned. I must flex on these hoes. That's fair, I guess. But even then, I feel like the heavy barrel and fat muzzle brake would keep it from jumping around that much. When you're aiming down sights though, you use 2 hands. But the recoil is the exact same. There's no difference, but it should make a huge difference. I guess they can keep the high recoil and one-handed animation for hip firing, but when aiming down sights with 2 hands, the recoil should be cut in half. I also found it pretty interesting how they went with a top brake design. Most revolvers these days use a swing-out cylinder. Top brake revolvers are cool and they function fine, but a swing-out design is simply better because it allows the frame to be stronger and more robust. Top brakes are a little bit weaker and more prone to breaking. You really only see this type of design with old Wild West revolvers, like the Schofield, or the Smith & Wesson Model 2, like I got. The top brake design was popular before people figured out that they can make the frame stronger with a swing-out cylinder. The stronger frame makes it more durable and allows the revolver to handle much bigger and more powerful rounds, like a .44 Magnum. You don't really see any top brake revolvers chambered in .44 Magnum. Reason 1, because top brakes were phased out before .44 Magnum was invented. And reason 2, because the top brake design probably wouldn't be able to handle .44 Magnum anyway. For some perspective, a modern .44 Magnum is about twice as powerful as an old .44-40. Top break revolvers can only handle low pressure loads. A 44 Magnum would probably blow it to pieces. To be fair, this is a magical science fiction setting, so I bet they can make a top break with a strong frame no problem. So I guess this whole tangent doesn't really fucking matter that much. I just thought I should mention how this design is very atypical for a 44 Magnum. I hope you guys enjoyed learning about this cool gun fact. And of course, the main reason why they chose this top break design is to make it fit the theme of a Wild West space cowboy revolver. Ultimately, it's not a bad idea. Top breaks are pretty cool, and I really enjoy this reload animation. I can't believe I'm glazing Highguard here, but I have to be objective with my observations. These animations are pretty slick. Breaking open the revolver and watching the casings fling out all over the place is very satisfying. It's quick, snappy, and visceral. In case you're unaware, this is how top break revolvers work. They have an automatic ejector, so as soon as you break it open, it flings out all the shells automatically. One thing I'm not sure of is how this revolver breaks open though. With these top break revolvers, there's a latch at the top of the frame. You gotta actuate that latch to break it open. But with the Longhorn, there's no latch to be found. You just yank it hard and break it open with brute strength. There is this little button below the cylinder that looks like a cylinder release, but it doesn't seem like your character ever touches it. And I don't see how that would work anyway. It looks like a typical cylinder release for a swing-out cylinder. As far as I'm aware, all these break-action revolvers have a latch or a lever release at the top. Cause, you're breaking it from the top, not the bottom. But besides that giant glaring flaw that would render this revolver completely inoperable, I think the rest of the reload is pretty good. I was actually surprised at how good the technique is. Your character cradles the bottom of the frame with their left hand and reloads with their right. Now this guy knows ball. That is excellent form. Perfect reload technique. To finish it off, they smoothly slide in the speed loader and flick it out with elegance. That was the empty reload, but the partial reload is slightly different. With this one, you reload it with your left hand, which is perfectly fine, but I do like the other technique more. I was about to say I think it's kinda silly how you dump out all the rounds in a partial reload, but this is a top break with an auto ejector, so it's kinda hard to get around that. So for a top break revolver, yeah, I think it's fine that they dump all the rounds for a partial reload. And when it comes to the partial reload, it always shows 3 rounds as being spent, while 3 are unspent. It doesn't matter if you shoot 1 bullet or 20, it's always half and half. It's a static animation. Also, I should mention how the auto-ejector fails to retract after ejecting the spent casings. It should retract after it's fully broken open, but it doesn't do that, so your character has to manually push it back down as they insert new rounds. Anyway, since they're going for a space cowboy type of revolver, this gun is limited to single action only. You have to manually pull back the hammer after every shot. I get that it's Wild West themed, but come on, this is the future, or something. I don't know what exactly the timeline is, but either way, single actions are outdated. This sci-fi revolver should be double action. You should be able to simply pull the trigger. And even if they want to keep it as a single action, the fire rate should be greatly increased. Your guy is taking their sweet-ass time to cock that hammer. As a result, this gun feels extremely clunky to use, and that low fire rate is a severe detriment in combat. It doesn't have to be this slow. Single actions can actually be shot pretty darn fast with good technique. I guess the lowest rarity could be a slow-firing single action, but the fire rate should increase as you upgrade it. It'd be really cool if there was a double action upgrade too. That would work pretty good with the progression system. And yeah, turns out there is a fire rate upgrade with the highest level legendary rarity. It skips right over double action though. It goes straight from a slow-firing single action to a full auto machine gun. It's freaking hilarious. It's a high capacity 20 round full auto assault revolver. My dude really got that revolver with a switch. Well actually, it doesn't have a full auto trigger. On your end, you hold down the mouse like it's a machine gun, but your character fans the hammer really fast like a Wild West gunslinger. The rate of fire is 7 rounds per second, which translates to 420 rounds per minute. That is absurdly fast. This level of skill is godlike. As crazy as it may seem, pro cowboy shooters can shoot single-action revolvers super fast in real life. It just takes a whole lot of practice. I have to admit, this is freaking dope. I wish more games allowed you to fan revolvers like this. It's supremely badass. There's no justifying the 20-round capacity though. That's just utter nonsense. And I thought it was interesting just how low the recoil is. Before, the recoil was comically high, but with the full auto legendary, the recoil is almost non-existent. If anything, it should have more recoil since you're firing it so fast with one hand. This should be more like a close-range hipfire type of thing. Otherwise, this gun just seems like it's OP. And now that I look at this gun up close, I just realized it looks like the frame slides back after every shot. That's odd. Is this intentional? Are these guys stupid? Do they not know the difference between a pistol and a revolver? Well, maybe not. This does exist in reality. It's called an auto revolver. The best examples are the Webley Fosbury in the Mateba Unica. The frame slides back and cocks the hammer, which puts the trigger into a single action position. That makes the trigger pull very light, and light triggers are better for accuracy. Double action revolvers have really heavy triggers. They kinda suck, so it's really hard to be accurate with them. It takes a lot of training to get used to it. You can always pull the hammer back yourself to shoot it in single action, but that requires manual input. So that's where the auto revolver comes in. It does that work for you. In a sense, the sliding frame is similar to the moving slide on a self-loading pistol, but it's still a revolver with a cylinder. So, is the Longhorn an auto revolver? Well, no. You always fire it in single action and pull back the hammer manually. It seems like they were going for an auto revolver, but for whatever reason, it's single action only. Maybe there was a miscommunication here. Maybe one guy wanted it to be an auto revolver, but the other guy said, hell nah, I want to fan this hammer like a cowboy. I think it'd make more sense for it to be an auto revolver. Like, it's already got the moving frame, so, might as well. Or better yet, they could have a variant for everything. One could be single action, the other could be double action, and the final upgrade should turn it into an auto revolver. That would be really cool. Well, hold on guys, I had to edit this in last second. It turns out this may be an auto revolver after all. When you're walking around normally, you always pull back the hammer manually. But while you're on your horse or on a zipline, you hold the revolver with one hand. And since your left hand is occupied, you aren't able to fan the hammer. You'd have to pull back the hammer with your right thumb, which would make the fire rate slower. That's how it should work. But no, you don't pull back the hammer. You just hold down the trigger and let it rip. The gun fires by itself. No manual hammer cocking needed. So that must mean this is an auto revolver after all. An auto revolver with the full auto trigger at that. Your character never lifts their finger off the trigger, so that implies that this revolver is fully automatic, like a machine gun. Holy crap, this thing is insane! So if this is undoubtedly an auto revolver, then why does your character fan the hammer if it's already cocking the hammer for you? Well, I guess they're just fucking LARPing. This whole time, your character was merely pretending to be a Wild West gunslinger, but in truth, the gun is actually doing all the work for him. This guy's a phony. A big fat phony. That's like driving an automatic with paddle shifters and saying you drive a manual. It's all a ruse for the sake of making yourself seem highly skilled. But really, it's all one big lie. One big LARP. But in all seriousness, I think my previous theory is the most likely explanation here. There was probably a disagreement between developers here. The designer clearly made an auto revolver, but the animator didn't care, or they just don't even know what an auto revolver is. Either way, the animator wanted the gun-slinging hammer fanning, so that's why they force you to shoot it in single action. I get it, hammer fanning is really cool, but this should have been saved for an actual single-action revolver. This particular revolver was clearly intended to be an auto revolver, so you should be able to pull the trigger with no other manual input. Another special thing about this variant is that it changes up the partial reload. Instead of using a speed loader, you plop the rounds in individually with extreme finesse. This display of dexterity is absolutely devious. It looks like a magic trick. There's also another variant that has a 2-round burst, so when you shoot, 2 bullets fly out. Then you pull the hammer, rotate the cylinder, and shoot another 2-round burst. But wait a second. The cylinder doesn't rotate to shoot that second round. The hammer falls on the same round twice. So what the hell? It shoots the same round twice? And it has a 22-round capacity? This is witchcraft. It is literally just space magic. To be fair, Highguard does have a science fiction meets high fantasy type of setting, so all this bullshit could simply be waved off as magic. But still, this is a gun. It's a mechanical device, not a magical staff. It should adhere to some kind of rules of reality. This revolver is absolutely absurd and devoid of logic. It is supremely dumb, but it's funny as fuck. Dare I say, this is peak gun design. Every game should look to Highguard as inspiration on how to make guns that are so dumb that they loop back around to being cool. So you know what? Because of that hilarious full auto mode, I'm gonna put the Longhorn in the legendary meme tier. It is truly the greatest revolver in gaming history. Next, we might as well cover the Ranger lever action. We gotta do the Space Cowboy guns back to back, you know. They make for quite an ugly couple. It's like seeing a fat fedora wearing Redditor with his underage Roblox e-girlfriend at a Valentine's Day dinner at Chili's. You hate to see it. You really do. I could somewhat appreciate the look of the revolver, but this lever action is just plain fugly. It reminds me of those god-awful Space Cowboy guns in Starfield. They're trying way too hard to give it this Space Cowboy aesthetic, but it just looks uncanny. It's simply off-putting. It's so bulbous and bloated. Like, why is the barrel so huge? And why is it made up of two pieces that are riveted together? What kind of fucking gunsmithing technique is this? And what's all this crap on the side of the receiver? It's some random doohickey that does nothing and serves no purpose. It just spits out gas and moves a piston back and forth. There is literally no reason for that, because this is a manually operated firearm. It's a lever action, not a piston-driven machine gun. So it doesn't need a piston-driven operating system. And why is there a canister in the stock? What is that doing? Is this shit powered by nitrous like Fast and the Furious? This just makes it look like a cheap air gun. Well, apparently, it is supposed to be an air gun. It's described as a pressurized lever action, so I guess it's using pressurized air to boost the velocity of the round? That is, quite an interesting idea. I've never heard of a gun that uses cartridges with gunpowder and a pneumatic system at the same time. I guess it's possible, but why bother adding more velocity with pressurized air when you could just use Bubba's sacred piss and hot loads? Would this tiny canister even add that much extra velocity to make a noticeable difference? For real air guns, ones that are powerful, they require a big canister so they have enough air to push rounds at high velocity. And the more air that's used per shot, the more often you have to refill the canister. So this tiny canister would only last a couple shots at most. Having to refill this canister constantly would be very inconvenient. But of course, that's not actually a problem in the game. This air canister has an infinite amount of air, and you never have to repressurize it. This gun would need a much bigger canister to make it worthwhile, but that would add more weight and more bulk, and you would still have to refill the canister often to keep it running. So, in the end, this is an overly complicated contraption that causes more problems than it's worth. It would be much simpler to use higher velocity ammunition. Whoever designed this gun was just slapping random shit on there. Or maybe it was designed by AI. They probably prompted it by saying, "Jarvis, concoct me a sci-fi steampunk space cowboy lever action." Okay, good. Now make it uglier. So that would explain why it's so uncanny and steampunk looking. It's a steaming pile of crap, that's what it is. The incorrect placement of the sling loop isn't helping its case. It's mounted onto the receiver, when it should be on the stock. Like, how are you supposed to wear this sling around your body? It looks way too small. And even if you were to sling it around your shoulder, the point of balance would be totally off, so it would be extremely awkward to carry around. It also seems like the placement of the sling loop would cause it to interfere with your grip. And yeah, it does. Your hand goes exactly where the sling loop is, so you'd have to get an awkward grip where the sling loop is between your fingers or something. It looks like the developer realized this last second, so to avoid the awkward grip, they just fucking deleted the sling loop entirely in first person. Wow, what a genius solution. Instead of putting the sling loop in the correct spot, they just deleted it. So now the sling is floating. It's, suspended by space magic, I guess. And holy moly, dude, that compensator is ginormous. It looks like a 20mm anti-tank rifle break. It is way too big for this lever action. That would do a great job at reducing recoil. It'd probably give the gun negative recoil. But in all seriousness, it's way too heavy and would cause the gun to be super front heavy. It's total overkill. They're really overcompensating for their small wee-wee, it seems. You don't need a compensator this big for this caliber. A regular size compensator would cut down the recoil plenty. It's not like this gun is chambered in something massive like 50 BMG. Visually, it looks like a 308. And yeah, according to the deep Highguard lore, they specifically say it's a 308, which is atypical for a lever action. For the most part, these guns used rimmed cartridges like 30-30 and 45-70. Lever actions were designed to use rimmed rounds. It's ideal for feeding through a tube-fed magazine. But in the modern day, 308 lever actions are a thing. They're just rare. And as far as I'm concerned, nobody actually uses them. I'm not sure how reliable they are, and I don't care to find out, because I would never buy a lever gun that isn't chambered in a cowboy round. That's just weird. Like if I'm gonna get a lever gun, I'm gonna get one with a cowboy round to match, or else it just ruins the whole vibe. It's not really a big deal. This cartridge could work fine, but something like 30-30 would be much more fitting for a lever action. But here's the thing. This isn't a typical lever action with a tube magazine. It uses a detachable box magazine, so there is no concern about how this would feed through a tube. It would work perfectly fine with the box mag. And yes, box magazine lever actions do exist. They look kinda cursed and silly if you ask me, but in terms of practicality, sure, it seems very practical. It definitely makes the reload a lot quicker than a tube magazine. Tube magazines and lever actions can be quite a pain to reload sometimes. But really, the main reason why these guns exist is because of California gun laws. They can't have semi-automatic firearms with magazines over 10 rounds, so if they want to have a high-capacity magazine, they gotta do some stupid modifications to their rifle to cripple it and make it a pain to operate. But I think all manually operated firearms are exempt from this rule, and that includes lever actions. For the most part, I'd say box mag lever actions are cringe and stupid. Or actually, after seeing this Henry Supreme setup, I changed my mind. This blend between Wild West and modern tactical goes kinda hard, I cannot lie. So the ammunition in box mag isn't inherently wrong at all. If anything, it's very practical. It's an upgrade compared to a traditional lever action. I'm just saying, it's kinda weird. This really arouses my suspicion though. Are these developers Californian? Did they purposely pick a box mag lever action because that's all they can get in California? Well, I googled where their studio is located to find out. Ding ding ding! Would you look at that? Their HQ is in Los Angeles, California, and they also have a studio in Seattle, Washington. That explains a lot. No wonder why this game is so trash. When it comes to reloading that magazine, I think the animation looks cool, but a couple things are questionable. On the empty reload, I like how you flick out the magazine. It's a crisp animation. But I don't see any sort of magazine release here. There should be a paddle behind the magazine, but there's not. This gun is literally unreloadable. The partial reload is even more peculiar. To start, they partially cycle the action and push down on the round to keep it from flying out. That's pretty interesting. When doing a partial reload on a bolt action with an internal magazine, that is something you have to do. Since the magazine is non-detachable, you have to open the action to load the rounds in from the top. During a partial reload, opening the action all the way would eject the unspent round from the chamber. So, to keep that from happening, you can slowly open the action and push down on the round to keep it from flying out. But this isn't a bolt action. It's a lever action. There's no need to open the action to load it. With a normal tube-fed lever action, you can simply slide the rounds into the loading gate. And with this particular box mag lever action, you can simply replace the magazine. There is zero reason to partially cycle it to reload it. Like genuinely, what is the logic here? You partially cycle the gun, push the round back in, and cycle it back into the chamber. Then after all that nonsense, you proceed to actually reload the gun. It's like digging a hole just to fill it back up. It's a completely wasted movement. You end up right back where you started. I guess the animator was referencing a bolt action with an internal magazine when they made this. But this is not a bolt action. It's a lever action. With a box mag. Besides all that nonsense, I do appreciate how your character slightly misses when inserting the magazine and has to make a readjustment. It's a really cool detail. And the animation itself looks smooth and natural. Dare I say, it's extremely immersive. Because, yeah, sometimes you are gonna mess up the reload. I also have to mention how weird this bolt is. It rotates and flips around when cycling. I'm not sure what all that's for. You don't need a rotating bolt on a lever action. It just needs to go back and forth. This is a hilariously overly complicated mechanism that doesn't do anything better than a regular lever action. It just seems like it's done for the sake of looking unique and cool. And some people may think it's cool, but I find it to be too greebly. I will say that I like the feel of the cycling animation. It feels good, but it's still way too slow and clunky at the same time. Much like with the single-action revolver, your guy is taking their sweet-ass time to cycle that thing. The fire rate is a measly 40 rounds per minute, which is really slow for a lever action. It doesn't help that there's an artificial delay, so even after you cycle the action, you still have to wait a second before you can fire the gun again. It's extremely irritating when I'm trying to shoot someone and the gun just refuses to shoot. Like, dude, I just cycled the gun. Why do I have to wait another half second to shoot it? In reality, lever guns can run pretty dang fast. In a normal setting with a powerful load, 100 rounds per minute is very attainable. Really, the main thing slowing you down is getting back on target, but simply cycling the action can be done in a split second. Just look at that speed difference between Highguard and reality. I can run my Marlin 336 much faster than these dorks. I actually ran this Marlin so fast that it couldn't handle my speed, and it broke. The damn lever got stuck open. In hindsight, I probably shouldn't have been trying to speed shoot a vintage 1960s rifle. Older guns tend to be more brittle. They can't handle the same amount of abuse as modern rifles. But I simply wanted an excuse to use this gun for a video, because I think it looks cool. Plus, this one is chambered in 30-30, so it gives you a good idea of how fast you can shoot a powerful lever action. It's a lot harder to run this gun fast when compared to something weak and low recoil, like a 38 Special. But unfortunately, my Marlin got sacrificed so I could get B-roll for a fucking Highguard video. I hate my stupid chud life, dude! Fuck! So please, if you would be so kind, put F in the chat to pay respects to my Marlin 336. It's at the gunsmith as of making this video, and it will likely be fixed soon. Hopefully. But anyway, what's especially crazy is that pro shooters can shoot lever guns even faster. I'm talking like 200 to 300 rounds per minute. It is absurd how fast some of these pro shooters can shoot these guns. They're almost competing with machine guns. Not with a semi-auto, but with a manually operated firearm. With the Ranger, the fire rate doesn't need to be that high. It is shooting a powerful round, so that would slow you down a bit. But it should definitely be much faster. I think around 100 rounds per minute is a good starting point. I'm guessing they intentionally slowed it down for balancing reasons, to keep the DPS from being too high or something. But I find that to be a very lame excuse. Artificially nerfing a gun for the sake of video game balancing is turbo cringe. I should be able to fire this gun at a realistic fire rate. If they want a slow-firing sniper rifle, they should have used a bolt action. Bolt actions are kinda slow, while lever guns are super quick. As is, I find this lever gun to be supremely clunky and sluggish. And that artificially slow fire rate is quite a huge detriment in combat. Well, turns out, everything I said there gets thrown out the window with the legendary variant. Just like the revolver, the legendary turns it into a full auto machine gun. Your character cycles this lever gun expeditiously, with extreme finesse. It shoots about 6 shots per second, or 360 rounds per minute. It's wild. It seems out of this world, but this fire rate is attainable for pro shooters. And what's even crazier is that the world record is about 8 shots per second, or 480 rounds per minute. Sometimes reality is stranger than fiction, so I find this legendary to be supremely awesome and hilarious. I gotta give these guys props for allowing you to shoot these cowboy guns so fast. I don't think I've ever seen a video game that showcases cowboy speed shooting, so to see it in Highguard of all games has rattled me to my core. Red Dead 3 better look to Highguard for inspiration on how fast these cowboy guns can truly shoot. Dare I say, Highguard is the best cowboy action speed shooting simulator. You can even ride around on your horse while shooting your cowboy guns. And when you do so, you'll cycle the lever gun with one hand by flipping it around like the Terminator. I can't lie, this game is low-key peak. It is extremely badass and highly immersive. Well, besides the artificially inflated capacity, that's a bunch of baloney. I really like how the legendary rarities massively increase the fire rate for the cowboy guns, but the lower rarity guns should get a fire rate buff too. They should start at like 100 RPM and go up incrementally with each upgrade. That would give you a steady progression, instead of jumping straight from 40 rounds per minute all the way to 360. That massive jump in fire rate caused me whiplash the first time I experienced it. And now that I think about it, maybe that piston doohickey on the side is functional after all. Could it be possible it's the same case as the revolver, where it's an automatic firearm that's actually cycling the gun for you? All the while, your character is just LARPing. They're pretending to be a cowboy shooter. That, might be the case. You see, there are automatic conversions for bolt-action rifles. Something like the Charlton rifle is a good example. It's an automatic conversion for the Lee Enfield. Basically, they just took the Lee Enfield and slapped a piston-driven operating system on the side. This has been done with multiple bolt-action rifles. It was a peculiar phenomenon back in the early 1900s, before machine guns were super common. Basically, these guys didn't have the money and resources to make brand new machine guns, so they would take a bolt action and convert it into a machine gun. It's low-key genius, and they do look pretty cool. They're kinda wacky and steampunky. So it seems the Ranger here took inspiration from those early 1900s automatic bolt-action rifles. Maybe this is supposed to be a lever action that's been converted into a machine gun. So that would explain why it has pistons that spit out gas. It's supposed to be a piston-driven operating system. But here's the problem. This isn't a bolt action, it's a lever action, so it's not really feasible to give it an automatic conversion. With the bolt action rifles, your hand isn't on the bolt, so there's no interference there. But with the lever action, your hand has to be inside the lever to pull the trigger, and the lever has to move the bolt. They're interlocked pieces. So if you were to make an automatic lever gun, it would be jerking your hand back and forth with the lever as you shoot it. It seems like that would be rather uncomfortable and mess up the cycling at the same time. There's really no point trying to make a full auto lever action. It's not necessary at all, because you can already shoot them super fast with enough skill. It's pretty funny how these guys messed up both the revolver and the lever action in the same way. They're designed as manually operated weapons with automatic conversions, but you still operate them manually. That is until you get the legendary variants, which does make them full auto, but they're not really full auto because you still operate them manually. You just do it really fast. Or maybe they are full auto, but your character just pretends to operate them manually. Holy moly, this is more convoluted than Dark Souls lore. Like, why would these guns only be automatic with the legendary variant? Why are these guns locked to such slow fire rates at first? Do you need to buy a premium subscription to unlock the automatic firing mode? I don't know, man. This game is made by Californians, so that's all you need to know. What's even more confusing is that one of the official Highguard videos says the full auto mode is thanks to a modified trigger mechanism.
Variation features a modified trigger mechanism that transforms the single-shot Ranger into a rapid-fire sharpshooter.
Like, no, dude. You can't simply throw an FRT into a lever action and make it fully automatic. These Californians are so dumb. They think you can put a switch on a lever action to make it full auto. God truly has abandoned that state. So, I don't know what to believe. It seems like none of the developers were on the same page here. The visual design tells me they were trying to make a piston-driven automatic lever action, but this narrator on the official Highguard YouTube channel is telling me it's full auto because of the trigger. I would rather believe the visual design here, but even then, it seems like they were confused on what kind of contraption they were trying to make. The truth is, nobody had a fucking clue what they were doing. But oh my god, bruh, watching this video especially was so painful. You can tell the narrator has no clue what she's talking about. She's just throwing out random buzzwords to sound cool and dramatic. But really, it's just pure unfiltered cringe.
The Ranger is a pressurized, lever-action light sniper rifle chambered for 308 marksman rounds.
I wouldn't be surprised if the script for this video was AI generated. Shoot, maybe the voices too. Still though, I do appreciate how funny the full auto lever gun is. That full auto mode really does save it and make it into one hell of a meme gun. The Ranger from Highguard is truly the best lever action in gaming history. It deserves a spot in the legendary meme tier. And one more thing before we move on. I have to mention how terrible these scopes are. The reticle in particular isn't very useful for long-range sniping. It's a big open circle, so at long range, the circle is bigger than your target, so you can't really tell which part of their body you're hitting. For a sniper, you need a thin crosshair, or a tiny dot, so you know exactly where that bullet's going. This big open circle would only be useful for close quarters, like under 25 yards. But even then, a tiny dot is simply better and more versatile. For the snipers especially, they should have a crosshair suited for long range. Wow, I sure spent a lot of time on the revolver and the lever action. I'm sorry, I simply could not help myself. As a native Texan, I was quite disturbed how badly they butchered the guns of my people. I feel like my culture has been appropriated, and I demand that this game be shut down. Well, would you look at that? They already shut the game down before I could finish this video. It couldn't even last a full 2 months. This game is truly the biggest flop since Concord. But you know what? I changed my mind. I want to start the Highguard revival movement. So to everyone watching this video, do everything you can to spread awareness. We must convince the developers to re-release Highguard so everyone has a chance to experience these cursed guns. They truly are so peak. They ought to re-release this game as Peak Guard. Then I swear, it'll be the most successful game in history. They just released it at a bad time, you know? Everyone was simply too busy during January and February.
Please, Highguard developers, just re-release the game and I swear it'll get 1 more billion active players per day. It would actually be so hilarious if we pulled a Morbius on Highguard. Let's make it happen, boys. Okay, now let's look at the assault rifles. This one is called the Dynasty. Basically, it's a malformed AK with a bunch of random greeble slapped onto it. If you thought this design was bad, then oh god, just look at the concept art. It's even more greebly. It looks exactly like what you would get if you asked an AI to generate a picture of a high fantasy AK. It's just sloppy, with a bunch of random details that have no rhyme or reason. In the words of Jonathan Ferguson, the keeper of firearms and artillery at the Royal Armouries Museum in the UK, this gun is festooned with nonsense. The in-game version is toned down a little bit, but man, it's still bad. It's a shame, because under all this nonsense, it's a functional AK. There is no need for all these random details. It just muddies up the design and makes it look gaudy. It's like they're trying too hard to make the design interesting and unique by adding all these details, but more random details doesn't make a design cooler or more interesting. It just makes it tacky, and ironically enough, unoriginal. Like, yeah, it is unique, but it's paradoxically generic at the same time. There's so much shit going on that the design isn't recognizable. It has a generic high fantasy Raid Shadow Legends type of art style. Gun designs don't need a bunch of random crap on them to make them look cool. There is plenty of beauty in simplicity. Adding too many random details can have the opposite effect, where the design just looks ugly. The reload is pretty goofy too. For some reason, you take your right hand off the grip and grab the handguard. Like, what the hell? There's no sense in doing all that when you can keep your right hand on the pistol grip and reload with your left hand. This is a totally pointless and wasted movement. I tried doing this technique myself, and yeah, it's extremely awkward and suboptimal. The first problem is that you have to quickly take your hand off the grip and grab the handguard, while also taking your left hand off the handguard to grab the new magazine. So that means you have no hands on your AK for a split second. If you aren't careful, you may drop your AK. So I'm not going to try doing both movements at the same time. I don't want to drop my AK like a dumbass. The next problem is trying to control the AK. Grabbing it by the front is the worst spot possible. The center of gravity is way further back, so the point of balance is way off. It makes the gun feel unwieldy and cumbersome, but if you keep your right hand on the pistol grip, you have much better control over the weapon. I do like how your character flicks out the empty magazine with the new one. This part specifically is a great technique. Not only is it fun and super satisfying, it's very practical too. It can speed up your AK reload and make it lightning quick. I would like to perform this technique myself, but I don't want to scratch my wood furniture. I've tried it before, and it works great, but I scratch the hell out of my polished wood handguard. That's because the magazine flips up and hits the handguard on its way out. So I advise only doing this technique on a gun with polymer furniture, or if the wood is already beaten up. I also think it's interesting how your character inserts the magazine underhanded. Inserting the magazine overhanded is the normal way to do it. That's how most people do it, because it's easier and more intuitive. But doing it underhanded works too. It just takes some getting used to. Personally, I would only insert the magazine underhanded if I'm using a taped dual mag. In this case, you gotta flip the magazine upside down to insert the other one. Either way, inserting an AK magazine with an underhanded grip is a valid technique. And for the last part, your character adjusts their grip, flips the gun over, and racks the charging handle with their left hand. Again, I tried doing this, but with your right hand on the handguard, your right arm is in the way, and you have no control over the rifle, so it feels super awkward and unwieldy. There's just way too much movement going on during this reload. You shift your grip around way too much, and the AK fully leaves your hands 3 times throughout the animation. Your character looks like a clown juggling his AK around for the sake of entertainment. There's just no practical purpose behind this technique. It was purely made for the sake of looking unique and cool. And it is unique, but I don't find it to be very cool. It's just cringe. I find the partial reload to be cringe as well. This time they switch it up by reloading the gun with their right hand. And yeah, that does work. Some people do it this way. But frankly, they're wrong, and this technique is suboptimal. Like I've said, when your right hand is off the pistol grip, you just don't have very good control over your rifle. It's also really awkward trying to find a comfortable spot to hold the rifle against your body. Trying to insert the magazine with your right hand is awkward as well. You just don't have any good angles. All around, this technique feels supremely unergonomic. It's far easier and faster to keep your right hand on the grip, do all the reloading with your left hand, and rack the AK by reaching under the gun.
Alternatively, you can reach over, but that means you have to flip the gun over. That's a whole nother movement, and adding more movement makes the reload slower. It's best to do everything in one smooth motion. It's definitely worse if you have an optic, because you have to make sure not to smack your optic on the way to rack the charging handle. With an underhanded rack, the gun stays in the same spot, and nothing is in the way. You can't see the charging handle though, so that's the only downside. You may miss it if you're not used to this technique, but if you're familiar with your rifle and know where everything's at, then it shouldn't be a problem. That's pretty much all I gotta say about the Dynasty. It looks ugly, and the reload technique is turbo cringe. At the very least, I guess it feels fine to use in game. It's a hard-hitting, slow-firing AK with higher recoil than most guns. It's an okay gun to use. That's cool, I guess. But everything else about this gun kinda sucks. The Dynasty belongs in the slop tier. Every game's gotta have an AK, and every game's gotta have a standard NATO-style rifle too. This one is called the Vanguard. I'd say the design is mostly inspired by the Beretta ARX. The overall shape and format of the gun seems fine. It seems like a perfectly functional rifle, cause it's basically an ARX. They just gave it an ugly body kit. Just like many other guns in Highguard, the outward appearance is uncanny. It has an atrocious color palette with way too many random details that just make it look sloppy. The thumbhole stock especially is tacky and cringe. It looks like it has a regular stock, but they tacked on a thin little piece that connects the pistol grip to the stock. It's completely pointless and should be deleted entirely. What makes this particular thumbhole stock so egregious is that it has 2 holes. This shit has gotta be AI generated. Yo dog, I heard you like thumbhole stocks, so we put a thumbhole stock in your thumbhole stock. Much like that meme, this sci-fi trope of giving assault rifles a thumbhole stock is overdone and outdated. Thumbhole stocks are best used on precision rifles, not assault rifles. When it comes to the animations, the partial reload is pretty darn good. It feels good, looks good, and the technique is perfectly fine. I can't say anything bad here. But the empty reload raises some eyebrows. Firstly, you do an AK-style mag swap, where you simultaneously swipe the powder release and flick out the empty mag with the fresh mag. It does look cool, but this isn't an AK, so this technique isn't valid. This rifle has a magazine well, so you can't flick out the magazine, because the mag well is in the way. It has to fall out the mag well first. The AK doesn't have a mag well, so that's what allows you to flick out the magazine. But if you look very closely, you can see that after your character hits the paddle release, they pause for a second to let the magazine fall. Then, they flick it out. So yeah, if you let the magazine partially fall out first, then flick it, it is doable. That's some nice attention to detail, actually. I'll give the animators credit for taking that into account. But at the same time, it's a very weird technique to do on a rifle with a mag well. It would make more sense to simply let the magazine fall out. Your guy is just being extra flamboyant here for no practical reason. It's purely for style points. And I guess it's stylish, but if you take it seriously, this reload technique is suboptimal, and it looks kinda dumb. This technique should be exclusive to the AK, but I guess the animator is a big fan of the magazine flip, so they forcibly put it onto the Vanguard too. The second part of the reload is also confusing. This gun very clearly has the charging handle on the left side. It's right in your face, you can't miss it, so obviously you should use your left hand to rack it. But no, your character uses their right hand to rack the right side of the gun. Like, what the hell? How did they mess that up? Are these guys blind? Well, no. It's hard to see, but there is a charging handle on the right side too. This gun is ambidextrous. It has charging handles on both sides. You can clearly see that if you inspect the gun in the menus, or if you use the inspect animation. You just can't really see it in normal gameplay, because the animation is quick and your hand covers the charging handle during the reload. So this does work, but at the same time, it's a weird and suboptimal technique. Like, why would you use your right hand to rack the right-sided charging handle, when you could use your left hand to rack the left-sided charging handle? That's how it's supposed to be used. It's literally designed that way. The left-sided charging handle is for right-handers, and the right-sided charging handle is for left-handers. It's simply faster and more convenient to reload a gun with your non-dominant hand. Better yet, they should ignore the charging handles entirely and hit the bolt release. But that's the thing, this gun doesn't have a bolt release. You see, most modern rifles have a bolt hold open feature combined with a bolt release to speed up reloads. So when the magazine runs dry, the bolt locks to the rear, you replace the mag, and quickly hit the bolt release to send it home and chamber the first round. Charging handles aren't used very often on modern rifles. You only need to rack it once to load the first magazine. Then on subsequent reloads, you can simply use the bolt release. It's a very nice and convenient little feature to have. So that's why most rifles have them these days. But I guess the designers intentionally didn't give this rifle a bolt release to make the reload more, cool and interesting. You see, racking the charging handle looks cooler than just hitting a button. I guess, bro. I can't say it's a huge deal, this gun doesn't need a bolt release, but either way, the reload animation needs to be completely overhauled. I don't know why I'm phrasing all this by saying they should change this and change that. This stuff ain't never gonna get changed. This game sucks so bad that it got shut down before I could finish making the video. That's about it for the Vanguard. In terms of gameplay, it's okay, I guess. It's like the opposite of the AK. It's got lower damage, a faster fire rate, and less recoil. It feels good when shooting on the firing range, but when trying to kill enemies, it feels like a pea shooter. Sometimes you gotta dump a whole magazine just to get one kill. That's more a problem with the whole game though. The time to kill in Highguard is super long. Everyone is a massive bullet sponge. It can take dozens of bullets to kill a single person. Anyway, this gun is cringe and ugly. Just like the Dynasty, the Vanguard is going in the slop tier.
Hey guys, just a little break for a second. I want to remind everyone watching that if you're really enjoying the video, make sure to hit that like and subscribe. I've been on the grind with these gun reviews lately, and my goal is to hit 500,000 subscribers before GTA 6. And if for some reason you're on mobile watching this long ass video, you can hit the hype button to hype up this video and make it go viral. And one more thing, if you're a big fan of the channel and would like to support my work, well, I just recently opened up a Patreon. There's just one tier right now. It's $5 a month, and with it, you'll get early access to all my videos. I really appreciate everyone who becomes a patron. Every little bit helps, and every single dollar will be invested back into the channel so I can make my videos even awesomer. Okay, that's enough. Let's get back to the video.
The last assault rifle we got is the Saber. The overall design seems to be mostly inspired by the FAMAS, especially with that carry handle and top-mounted charging handle. Basically, all these assault rifles used a real rifle as a base, then the artist made it uglier, changed a couple things around, and gave it random greebles. As a result, the Saber looks like a skinwalker wearing the skin of a FAMAS. It's just uncanny and off-putting. And this is the best version they could come up with. The concept art is even more cursed. Like, my god. Why is the stock split in half? Why did bro cut into his suppressor like a tatami mat? And what the fuck is this knuckle guard? This shit is so random. These guys are never beating the AI-generated art allegations. At the very least, this design does have some cool features. An interesting detail I noticed is that there's little flaps on the handguard which open up after shooting. This looks like it's supposed to be a ported barrel, which redirects gases and reduces recoil. That's pretty cool, but why would it need moving flaps over the ports? I suppose the idea here is to keep dirt from getting into the barrel when you're not shooting? That's not a bad idea, actually. That could potentially be a problem with ported barrels and muzzle brakes. Dirt and mud could easily get into the barrel if you accidentally drop it. But if you got flaps that cover up the holes, then that'll seal it off. This gun also features a reciprocating barrel and a wildly rotating bolt. It flops all over the place like a dying fish. I like the reciprocating barrel, but I'm not sure what the purpose of the rotating bolt is. It don't need to be doing all that, bro. It just needs to go back and forth. It seems like this was solely done for the sake of giving it a cool moving part for the user to admire. It's like jingling keys in front of a baby.
Ooh, a random moving part that has no practical purpose. How cool and interesting.
It could have been worse though. One of the original concepts has a revolving cylinder, which preloads bullets into the burst chamber, as it says. So, it's a magazine-fed revolver. Holy fuck, dude. I can't believe they almost made the Saber into a magazine-fed revolver. How come every game I fucking cover has to have a magazine-fed revolver in it? No matter how fast I run, I can't escape it. I've explained this multiple times already, so to keep it short, magazine-fed revolvers are a meme. Sure, there's two real-life examples, but they're hilariously overly complicated and unreliable. They work in theory, but not so much in actual practice. I think the idea with this concept Saber is that the rotating cylinder would be able to fire off 3 rounds almost instantaneously. It'd be a hyperburst with a fire rate of over 2,000 rounds per minute, or something crazy. You see, rotating actions can cycle faster than reciprocating actions. The HKG-11, for example, has a weird rotating bolt that can fire a 3-round burst at 2,000 rounds per minute. Meanwhile, a normal burst rifle would fire those rounds at about 800 to 1,000 rounds per minute. The idea behind the hyperburst is to fire bullets so fast
that all 3 bullets leave the barrel before the user feels the force of recoil. If you can shoot all those bullets before the recoil comes into effect, then that means you'll have a really tight and accurate grouping. Landing 3 bullets in 1 trigger pull is pretty nutty. That's like 3 times the damage. It's a really cool concept, but the problem is that it's overly complicated and hard to manufacture. The G11, for example, is so unfathomably complicated that people call it German space magic. So in the fantastical setting of Highguard, sure bro, why not? It's not inherently bad to give these guns weird mechanisms. The designs just have to be executed correctly, so they don't end up looking like random bullshit. The final version of the Saber doesn't have a cylinder though. They made it more normal-ish, but not really. It has some kinda convoluted revolving bolt. I wish I could get a 3D render of this model and break it down part by part to see exactly what is going on, but sadly, that's not an option. I assume the purpose of this weird mechanism is to make it cycle extremely fast, you know, for a hyperburst feature, but that's not how it works in gameplay. The fire rate is pretty average for a burst rifle. So yeah, this overly complicated mechanism has no purpose. It's just a pair of jingling keys. It's also not ideal that the bolt and internals are completely exposed. That would make it easy for dirt and dust to get into the gun, which would make it prone to failure. It's kind of funny how they covered up the ports, but they didn't cover up the bolt, which is the most important part. But if all that was enclosed, then you wouldn't be able to see all the jingling keys. I do like the reciprocating barrel though. The whole point of this design is to reduce muzzle rise and recoil. It's like a shock absorber. It delays and minimizes the force of recoil. So in combination with the ported barrel, this rifle would be quite a smooth shooter. And in actual gameplay, it sure is. This gun has a total laser beam. The forward grip is really goofy though. It's not connected to the handguard. Rather, it's connected via this skinny frame which rides along the bottom of the gun. That's a dumb looking design, and I doubt it would be structurally sound. It looks like this thin little frame could snap like a twig. It would be much better to mount the grip directly to the handguard. It would be more secure, and you would get a better grip. A higher grip allows you to have more control over the muzzle, so you get better recoil control. But with how low this grip is, you would barely have any control over the muzzle, which would give you more recoil and more muzzle rise. That's quite ironic, because clearly, the whole point of this design is to have as little recoil as possible. It's also silly how they deleted the trigger guard. The whole point of the trigger guard is to guard the trigger, to keep an outside force from hitting it and causing a discharge. It does have that big frame around it, which acts like a big knuckle guard, but that thing should be deleted, and it should have a regular trigger guard instead. Besides all that nonsense, the Saber seems mostly functional. Like I said, it's basically a FAMAS, it's just uglier. So of course, they had to make this gun a 3-round burst only. As we all know, every game's gotta have the obligatory burst rifle. As a side note, most guns that have burst fire aren't burst fire only. They can usually shoot in semi, burst, and full auto. I always hate when games force a select fire gun to be burst fire only. It's a silly trope that needs to go away. Burst fire should be an option, not mandatory. But I guess they have to make it mandatory for balancing purposes. They designed this gun to fill the niche of the long-range assault rifle. The low recoiling bursts make the Saber ideal for mid to long-range engagements, but the clunky burst fire makes it unforgiving at close range.
We fucking... What the fuck? This game is so bad!
Up close, you're better off using the Vanguard or the Dynasty. If the Saber had the option for full auto, then I guess it would be too versatile and unbalanced. There wouldn't be much reason to use the other 2 rifles if the Saber could do everything. That's the logic game developers use. It doesn't have to be that way. The Saber should have the option for full auto, but the DPS should be balanced out to where it's not quite as good as the other 2 rifles at close range. The unique feature of this rifle should be the extremely low recoil, not the burst fire. Burst fire should be an option you could switch to for when you do get into long-range firefights. When you're up close, you should be able to fire it in full auto. That would make this rifle a lot more versatile and a lot more fun to use. I guess the Saber does have potential to shred up close. You just gotta be really good at tracking crackheads as they bounce all over the place. It doesn't help that there's an artificial fire rate cap on the burst. It can't keep up with your trigger finger, so this gun feels really clunky. That's another big trope I hate in video games, where they put a huge cap on your fire rate. In reality, you can shoot a gun as fast as you can pull the trigger, and that applies to burst fire as well. If you spam a burst gun super fast, it's almost like shooting in full auto. Despite the extreme clunkiness, I still like how the Saber performed. I had one match where I popped the fuck off and got a whopping 34 kills. Yeah, that's right. Ya boy is a certified Highguard pro. This gun may feel horrible to shoot,
but it's a laser beam with high damage output. Assuming you can hit your shots, it deletes enemies faster than most other guns. Thank goodness, because other games tend to make burst rifles extremely gimmicky and inconsistent. The recoil is too high to land all your shots on target, so your effective DPS is handicapped, and you waste a bunch of ammunition. But the Saber was built with a bunch of recoil mitigating features to make it as accurate as possible. Finally, we have an accurate burst rifle with tight groupings. This supreme Highguardian technology is extremely advanced. It's far beyond our modern day understanding. These guys got it figured out. If you're gonna make a burst rifle, you gotta pair it with recoil reducing attachments, so the burst fire is accurate enough to hit all your shots on target. The animations are pretty solid too. The partial reload in particular is perfectly fine. It looks good. I have no complaints here. The empty reload though, well, your character does the suboptimal right-handed reload, which I'm not a fan of. They also flip the gun upside down to insert the magazine. This is quite an oddball technique. I've never seen anyone do this, so I tried doing it myself, and turns out it's not that bad. With the bullpup, the center of gravity is shifted back, so you still have good control over the rifle with only your left hand on the front end. In this case, flipping the gun over to insert the magazine does make sense. I found it far more ergonomic than trying to keep the gun upright. This technique isn't terrible, but still, I would say it's suboptimal. It's simply easier and faster to do all the reloading with your left hand. Doing it with your right hand requires you to shift the gun around a bunch, and it wastes time. It's not a huge difference, but it is slightly slower than doing it the normal way. But you know what? I don't hate the Saber quite as much as the other assault rifles. Low-key, it does have some cool and useful design features, but it also has other design flaws that don't make a whole lot of sense. It's a mixed bag, so I'll put the Saber in mid-tier. Okay, enough of that boring crap. Let's get back to the good stuff. Next up is the Corsair SMG. I think I'll let the official Highguard YouTube lady describe this one.
The Corsair is a burst machine pistol with sawed-off stock grip, triple hammer action barrels, and a high-capacity curved magazine.
Ah, yes. It has sawed-off stock grip with triple hammer action barrels. Like, what the fuck is she yapping about? She's just spitting out random buzzwords with improper grammar. Triple hammer action barrels? Seriously? This grammar is atrocious. It's very apparent this narrator didn't pass the 1st grade. She's not very, educated. But in all seriousness, I think this solidifies my theory that the script and the voiceover is AI generated. It's slop in its purest form. So allow me to describe this gun a little bit better. The Corsair is a stockless burst-fire triple-barrel SMG. Visually, I'd say it looks most similar to a sawn-off Ruger 1022, but this one is chambered in 9mm, and it has a whopping 3 barrels. It may seem stupid, because it is, but there is such thing as a multi-barrel SMG in real life. I think the best example is the 1915 Villa Perosa. The original purpose of this design is to serve as an anti-aircraft weapon. Hitting moving airplanes isn't very easy. The best way to take them down is with sheer volume of bullets. So if you double the barrels, then that'll double your chances of getting a hit. But the funny thing about the Villa Perosa is that it's chambered in 9mm, which isn't very effective for taking down aircraft. It was still able to deal some damage to the paper-thin airplanes of the time, but it wasn't great. So eventually, the Italians realized, maybe we should use more powerful rifle bullets to shoot down planes instead. But they already made a couple thousand Villa Perosas, and they didn't want to waste them, so they tried using them in the ground role for killing infantry. But in this role too, it proved to not be very effective. This gun can spit out a shit ton of lead at a blistering fire rate of 1,800 rounds per minute, but the downside is that you get more weight, less accuracy, and way more recoil. Most of the bullets just end up missing. It can be useful for suppressive fire, or for close quarters trench clearing, but for the most part, it's just not very practical. It's simply more efficient to use a single barrel machine gun with higher accuracy. The twin barrel design works better for shooting aircraft, because you need that sheer volume to have a chance of getting a hit. But for infantry, it's mostly a waste. So, in the end, the Villa Perosa didn't really take off. Only a few thousand units were made, and they got phased out pretty quick. Now, a triple barrel machine gun in particular is almost unheard of, but I was able to find one example, the Soviet TKB-59. I can't believe this is real. These guys actually tried to make a triple barrel machine gun. The Soviets were trying to DPS max, it seems. If you got 3 barrels, then that's 3 times the damage. That's an interesting idea, but you also get 3 times the recoil. So, as you can guess, this stayed as an experimental prototype, and it never made it to mass production. Like I said, multi-barrel machine guns are just not very practical for infantry use. So of course the gun designer for Highguard saw these guns and said, hell yeah, I'm gonna make a stockless triple barrel SMG. What makes the Corsair even more peculiar is that it shoots a 2-round burst per barrel. So it shoots 6 bullets per trigger pull. As you would expect, the performance is very bipolar. The Corsair has high raw DPS, but it's inaccurate and has high recoil. That means it's only good at point blank range. If you somehow manage to land all your shots, then yes, it does shred pretty good. But if you can't perfectly track your target as they spastically strafe around at lightning speed, then you'll burn through your ammunition and get wrecked. I don't have a problem with the way it performs. By all means, the Corsair should be hard to use, because multi-barrel machine guns are inherently gimmicky and impractical. Especially this one. There's no stock, and you hold it with one hand, so the recoil would be absurd. 3 times the barrels means 3 times the recoil, and it shoots 2 bullets per trigger pull, so that doubles the recoil on top of that. And one-handing with no stock doubles the recoil again. So basically, this gun would have 12 times more recoil than a typical 9mm SMG. I bet if you aimed at the ground, you'd be able to hit a few birds. I don't know why they would make you one-hand a stockless triple-barrel SMG. Obviously, it's better to hold a gun with 2 hands for better accuracy and recoil control. Your character should grab the barrel shroud with their left hand. Or ideally, a gun like this should have a forward grip and a proper stock to make it more controllable. As is, this gun is configured as the ultimate ghetto blaster. We ought to send a shipment of Corsairs to Chicago immediately. I'm sure the residents of O-Block would love to have these guns in their arsenal. The Corsair is just one big meme. It's not meant to be taken seriously. It seems to be highly impractical on purpose, and I can respect that. It's pretty funny. But at the same time, it would be nice to see a more serious version of the gun too. Turns out, we almost had it. One of the concepts for the Corsair is a machine pistol with a vertical grip and a folding stock. Hey, I actually kinda like this. It's not too bad. I think they should have used this as the final design for the Corsair. It looks far more practical than the one we got. Or maybe we should be able to alter the configuration with attachments. But sadly, there's no attachment system in Highguard. All you got is the rarity system, and the guns don't visually change between the different rarities. Boy, I sure hope they add an attachment system in the next update. At the very least, the Corsair comes with big compensators by default, so that would cancel out some of the recoil. But still, this abomination would bounce around like a wild horse. In actual gameplay, it's not that crazy. It's bad, but it's not comically bad. If the recoil was realistic, then oh my god, this gun would be completely unusable. I'm guessing that's why it's limited to a 6-round burst, to keep the recoil from getting too out of hand. But it's not helping that much. The biggest problem is that it has that god-awful artificial burst delay, so it feels clunky and unresponsive. That creates a disconnect between your input and when the gun actually shoots, so it makes you whiff and waste ammo. I also found it interesting how this gun has an AR-15 style charging handle. There's nothing inherently wrong with it. It works fine. It's just weird to see this on a gun that looks nothing like an AR-15. I think the only other gun that has this type of charging handle is the MP7. So, yeah, this charging handle is fine. I just thought I should point out how it's rather unusual. To be fair, this whole gun is extremely unusual. It's like they were trying their absolute best to make it as weird as possible, and they succeeded greatly in doing so. This is one of the goofiest guns I've ever seen. Honestly, I fully support this goofy design. But there is one fatal flaw with it. There's only 1 magazine and 3 barrels. So how does this magazine feed into 3 different chambers simultaneously? I need to see a 3D render of this design. There is no way this would be able to feed into 3 chambers from 1 magazine. I guess the designer just totally forgot about that part. The only explanation here is that this gun is running on space magic. But in all seriousness, this gun needs to have a magazine for each barrel and chamber. So, if there's 3 barrels, that means there should be 3 magazines. That would triple the capacity and bring it up to 72. So, it would actually be useful for its intended purpose of throwing a bunch of lead at the enemy. Like, what's the point in making a triple barrel machine gun if the ammo runs out in 2 seconds? Better yet, they should give this gun 40-round extended mags, so it would have 120 in total. Now that would make it a truly effective bullet hose. The legendary rarity bumps it up to 66, which is something, but it still doesn't feel like enough. And this one has a double shot effect, so it shoots a 12-round burst. Okay, now it's starting to feel like a bullet hose. A 12-round burst is pretty long. At this point, you might as well make it full auto. A way higher capacity in a full auto mode would make this gun a lot more fun and more effective to use. But I'm guessing the developers decided against it for the sake of balancing. I can't stand that logic. Trying too hard to make guns balanced by giving them artificial handicaps just makes them boring and unfun. Sure, guns should be balanced, but they should be balanced in a different way. For me, I want my guns to be powerful and effective, but the more powerful the gun, the more skill it requires to use properly. With my personal modifications, the Corsair would be the ultimate bullet hose. It would have stupid high DPS, but the recoil would be comically high to match, so you would need godlike skill to tame it. Now that sounds like a lot more fun. These guys should hire me to be the lead game designer. I would make sure the game is actually fun to play. So to the guys at Wildlight Studios, if you happen to have any job openings, hey, I'm right here. I'm ready to be hired. That was a low blow. When it comes to the reloads, the partial reload in particular is pretty darn good. You hit the paddle, drag the magazine out, and insert a new one. I have no complaints here. This is textbook technique, and the animation looks good. The empty reload is quite peculiar though. Instead of hitting the paddle with your left thumb, your character hits it with their right middle finger, and they shake the gun around to force the magazine out. This is quite an oddball technique. Paddle releases are meant to be actuated with your left thumb, not your right middle finger. I've never seen anyone perform this technique in real life, so I tried it myself. From my extensive research, I found that this technique does work for guns with straight insert magazines. The paddle releases tend to be loose, and the magazines fall right out. But for guns with rock-in style magazines, the paddles are really stiff, and the magazines don't drop out by themselves. You gotta hit the paddle really hard, and shake the magazine out with a little bit of force. The Corsair has a rock-in style magazine, so for this one especially, it's not the best technique. That's why your character has to violently shake the gun. They have to force the magazine out. That's a pretty neat detail, actually. I can't believe the Highguard developers thought of that. These guys truly have elite-level gun knowledge. But not really. I have no clue how they got this detail right, when there's a bunch of other basic stuff that they got completely wrong. I think it's just the animator in particular who has some ball knowledge. Everyone else seems to be completely clueless. In the end, this reload technique is possible, it's just sub-optimal. I'd say it's simply better to do all the reloading with your left hand. Low-key, I kinda like the Corsair. It's an objectively terrible and highly impractical design, but it's also hilarious, so I fully support it. If this gun were available for purchase, I would be the first in line to buy it. Dare I say, the Corsair is a great example of how to make a shitty but funny meme gun. You already know, the Corsair belongs in the legendary meme tier. It truly is the best stockless triple barrel SMG in gaming history. For another SMG, we have the Viper. I don't know what else I can say besides, this gun looks like total slop. It's ugly, and the function is pure nonsense. I think I'll let the Highguard YouTube lady describe it for me.
The Viper is a fully automatic SMG equipped with a high-capacity, dual-column magazine that also serves as a foregrip for maximum reload speed. Its advanced design features an experimental hinging action that opens wide, then bites down on the magazine like a snake.
Yeah, this design is really goofy. Instead of having a normal action and magazine, the top hinges open, and the forward grip is fused to the magazine, so you rip out the whole front end to reload it. That sure seems like a waste of materials. They have to craft a forward grip for each disposable magazine. I find it quite ironic how they call this an advanced design, but there's nothing advanced or futuristic about it. Like, what advantage does this design have over a normal SMG? It just seems overly complicated and provides no benefit. If anything, the hinging action would be a huge detriment to its ergonomics. It seems like it'd be really awkward and cumbersome to operate. And yeah, it sure is. The empty reload especially is terrible. You grab directly onto the exposed action with your right hand, which is a horrible idea, because that stuff can get really hot. Even if it was covered up, there's no reason to grab the front end of your gun with your right hand. All you're doing is throwing off the point of balance, and making it harder to control your gun. It's better to hold on to the pistol grip, so you have complete control. I can appreciate how you flick out the magazine. That's cool, I guess. But what really worries me is how the gun bites down on your thumb as you close the hinging action. That looks like it would hurt quite a bit. So that proves my point. This hinging action has no benefit. All it does is bite your thumb off. This shit's gotta be worse than Garen thumb. At the very least, The reload animation changes with the higher rarity variants. With this one, you rack the charging handle with your left hand, and it doesn't bite down on your thumb. Hey, that's pretty good. This reload should be the default. The other animation should be deleted entirely. And it looks like my wish has been granted. They deleted the whole fucking game. The only reason why it's made this way is to fit the theme of a Viper. Like, haha, okay, it's called the Viper, so it hinges wide open and bites down like a snake. Wow, that's so clever. This is what happens when artists try way too hard to make everything fit a theme. They wanted to have a snake-themed gun, so they had to make it a hinge action that resembles the jaws of a snake biting down on its prey. They made this gun without a single concern for how practical or feasible the design would be. As a result, we have a horribly cursed gun that's only good for chopping off the user's extremities. I can usually appreciate a cursed firearm if it's done right and has some real-world example, but this one is completely made up, and it's plain dumb. I also find it funny how short the barrel is. This is a whole lot of gun for not a whole lot of gun. The chamber is way up here, so the barrel is only like 2 inches long. I hate to break it to you, buddy, but that's not a whole lot of pipe to be working with. You ain't getting no penetration power with that stubby chode. The ideal length is around 6 to 8 inches, and 5 inches is the minimum. You might be able to get away with 4, but anything less, and it's just not very effective. I know this all sounds like one huge corny penis joke, but I am being dead serious about these measurements. Stop laughing. It's not funny to laugh at a micro-barrel disability. So, it's no surprise the Viper really struggles at range. It has a high rate of fire with high recoil, but low damage at the same time. Each bullet hits like a limp-wristed liberal, but the insanely high fire rate means the DPS is slightly higher than most guns. The Viper does have potential to shred, but making use of that DPS ain't easy. The recoil's just too high, so this gun is only usable at point blank. Anything beyond 15 yards, and it's damn near impossible to land your shots. It bounces and wanders all over the place. Funnily enough, the recoil pattern resembles a coiling snake. Jeez, man, they really went all in on the snake theme here. It's not inherently a bad thing for a gun to have high recoil. I can respect when certain guns demand skill to use, but they should have high damage to make it worthwhile. So either the damage on the Viper should be greatly increased to justify the high recoil, or the recoil should be greatly decreased to match the low damage. The latter makes more sense here. This isn't a high caliber hard-hitting SMG. It's chambered in 9mm. It says it right there on the bolt. So there's no reason for this gun to be kicking this hard. 9mm submachine guns are very tame and controllable. It seems like the developers artificially nerfed it to keep it from being too powerful. But that doesn't make the gun balanced, it just makes it a point-blank gimmick weapon. Or actually, the low damage and high recoil is pretty darn realistic. A stubby barrel means the bullet gets way less velocity, and less velocity means the bullet hits with less oomph. A super short barrel also gives you more recoil because there's less weight driving down the front end. So, realistically, it does make sense for this stub barrel SMG to have low damage and high recoil. It's extremely immersive, but it doesn't have to be that way. The Viper should have a normal length barrel, so the damage and recoil is normal too. Again, it's laughable how they called this an advanced design, but it's objectively terrible and has nothing but downsides compared to a normal SMG. They should have given it some kind of recoil mitigation system so it lives up to the title of being an advanced SMG. I get that it's a submachine gun, so it should be a close-range weapon, but close range doesn't mean point blank. Submachine guns should be usable out to 50 yards, not 15. If this was an arena shooter with tiny claustrophobic maps, sure, I can see why those games have to artificially nerf the effective range on SMGs so they can make assault rifles and snipers more useful in comparison. But for Highguard, these maps are huge. There's a whole lot of empty space, and you often engage enemies from 100 yards away or more. So if the guns were properly tuned for these large maps, the SMG should have a lot more effective range. I'm not saying they should be laser beams that snipe enemies over 100 yards, but they should be competitive out to 50 yards or so. For the most part, I just don't see a reason to use SMGs in this game, when you can use an assault rifle that has similar damage output with more range and less recoil. That's all I gotta say about the Viper. It looks stupid, and trying to use it is absolutely torturous. I don't like it one bit. The Viper is going in the slop tier. For the compact auto shotty, we have the Paladin.
Now this one wouldn't be so bad if it didn't have that big stupid frame that envelops the entire gun. It's just a bunch of unnecessary bulk that serves no purpose. All this junk needs to be deleted, so if you get rid of all that nonsense and slim it up, then it turns into a decent looking gun. Now the function of the Paladin is highly intriguing. The most obvious part that sticks out is the magazine. Literally, it sticks out to the side and it travels through the gun as you shoot. What's going on here? Everyone knows that magazines don't move through the gun like that. They just push bullets into the gun, right? Well, that is true for modern guns, but this is a real thing. It's called a feed strip, and you sure don't see this type of design anymore. The only example I can think of is the Hotchkiss machine gun, which was first designed in 1897. It's not too dissimilar from a typical belt-fed machine gun. The main difference is that it uses a rigid metal strip, instead of having a floppy belt with individual links. So basically, that's how the Paladin works. It uses an enclosed rigid metal strip to feed ammunition. But one interesting detail I noticed is that the spent casings don't get ejected from the gun. They stay in the strip, or the magazine, whatever you want to call it. So, what's going on here? Are you telling me this ammunition doesn't get stripped from the feed strip and fed into the chamber? Is this gun shooting rounds straight from the magazine? Shooting rounds right next to each other like that is not a very good idea. There's an extremely high chance it'll cause the other rounds to cook off too. Once you shoot one, the whole thing would blow up like a stick of dynamite. For this to actually work, the magazine would have to be made like a harmonica gun, where each round has its own chamber. But that's not the case. There's nothing separating the ammunition. It's tightly stacked together. Or hold on, maybe this is functional. You see, there is another gun that uses the Hotchkiss-style feeding strips, the Breda M37. One of the key features of this design is that the casings don't get ejected. They get fed back into the strip. From the outside, it looks like the casings never leave the feed strip, but on the inside, the rounds get fed forward into the chamber, fired, and then pulled back into the strip after firing. The purpose of this design is to save the empty casings for later, so you can reload them. This gun was made during World War II, and during the war, resources were not aplenty, so the Italians crafted this up to save on resources. If you can save every casing and reload them a couple times, that saves you quite a bit of money. So it seems like the Paladin functions most like the Breda M37. The shotgun shells get fed into the chamber, then they get fed back into the strip after they're fired. Or maybe not. Holy fuck, man, the plot twists never end. When you look at this animation closely, the Paladin's bolt doesn't move far enough to push the rounds into a chamber. All it's doing is smacking the rear end of the shells and making them go boom. So yeah, it looks like it's shooting straight from the magazine after all. I wish I could get more angles and an X-ray view to confirm, but that's not an option. From what you can see in the first-person view, it looks like the shells never move. Man, they were so close to making this strip-fed shotgun actually functional. They almost had it, but they fumbled on the 1-yard line. I also noticed this flappy bit on the side that opens up after firing. This looks like a dust cover that flips open to eject spent shells, but this gun doesn't eject shells. It holds on to them. So, I don't know why this part is necessary. You also have to wonder, why would these guys make a strip-fed shotgun when they could just give it a normal magazine? This may be a fantasy world with space magic, but it's apparent these guys have modern firearm technology at the same time. So there's no reason for them to make a shotgun with an outdated mechanism when they could just give it a normal magazine. But of course, it was done for the cool factor. The designer wasn't concerned about practicality. They crafted up this goofy mechanism simply because they wanted a unique and wacky steampunk shotgun. And yeah, this design would be perfect for a steampunk game. It seems like Highguard wants to be steampunk in some ways, but they have modern style firearms at the same time. The whole setting and art style is contradictory and inconsistent. It lacks a core identity. Highguard's world just feels like a hodgepodge of random bullshit. So, whatever, man. And this goofy, nonsensical hodgepodge setting of Highguard, sure, this nonsensical steampunk space magic strip-fed shotgun is very fitting. Either way, I can get down with this silly, goofy design. Just like the Corsair, I would love to add the Paladin to my collection of shitty and outdated firearms. I can appreciate the concept. I'm a big fan of obscure experimental firearms. I just wish the Paladin was actually functional. At the same time, I would like to see a more practical version with a regular magazine too. Turns out, we almost had a normal magazine-fed Paladin. In the concept art, there's several designs here that depict it with a big drum magazine. And oh boy, some of these concepts are extremely cursed. Just look at the angle on this magazine. How would that even feed? And this one has the drum magazine way up front, so the barrel is non-existent.
Either that, or the rounds feed backwards with some bullshit overly complicated mechanism. These guys almost gave us the Fallout 3 combat shotgun. And with this one, you have to swing open the foregrip to release the magazine.
Another interesting concept is the dual drum. So when you run out of ammo in your first magazine, you can quickly flip it over and load in the other one. That's a great idea, but my god, dual drums would make this gun extremely heavy and unwieldy. And lastly, there's a unique model that has a helical magazine like a PP-19. There's a whole lot of concepts here with drum magazines, but only one with the feed strip. And yet, that design was the winner. That's the final version we got in game. I'm thinking this was supposed to be the base model only, while the drum mag would be used on the higher rarities. If you look at the legendary variant in game, it says it uses a drum magazine, but the model is still using the feed strip. It seems like they wanted to include several variations and attachments, but they had to cut all that to save time. That's very unfortunate. It would be pretty cool if the models visually changed with each rarity. That's the only way you can justify these magical capacity increases. Like, okay bro, there is no way this thing holds 40 rounds. Visually, it holds 18. It says it right there on the magazine, so there's no debating it. The capacity should be 18. But not a single rarity holds 18. The base rarity only holds 14. As I mentioned earlier in the video, this goes for every single gun. The capacity is pretty much always wrong. The low rarity models are artificially limited, while the higher rarities have capacities that are way too high. When it comes to the partial reload, it's extremely jank. As soon as you press the reload key, the feed strip abruptly jumps back to its starting position. I don't think it's supposed to function that way. There's no way it could. It seems more like the animator was cutting corners. Either way, it would make more sense if the magazine ejected out the other side, or maybe the user would have to manually push it out. On the empty reload, that's how it works. The strip automatically ejects to the right side after shooting the last round. Hey, that's pretty good. At the same time though, the barrel and handguard hinge open, and the barrel almost falls out. So you have to push it back in place to keep it from slipping out. That seems pretty sketchy. It's not a very sturdy design. I think the intention here is to have a barrel that you can quickly swap out for when the gun overheats. That's a good idea, but the barrel should be locked in place by something. It shouldn't slip out every time you try to reload it. And you know what makes this barrel even weirder? It's shaped like a diamond, and there's 2 bores. So, I guess technically this is a double barrel, or would you call it a double bore? The barrel is one solid piece, but there's 2 bores in it. You can also see these little slits and holes which look like additional tiny bores, but they're not. They have no function. I know I've said it a lot at this point, but this genuinely looks AI generated. It's just so random. I'm guessing the rounds alternate between the 2 barrels. As to why this design is necessary, I don't know. Maybe it's an attempt to disperse heat? I guess that's a good idea. But we also have to ask, why are the barrels slightly offset? That would only serve to throw off your aim. Double barrels are either side by side or over under. A side by side means the vertical placement of the shots are the same, but you may have to slightly adjust your aim horizontally to line up both shots perfectly. With an over under, it's the other way around. The horizontal placement is the same, but you may have to slightly adjust your aim vertically to get both shots to line up. Over-unders are generally seen as better for precision. It's easier to adjust your aim vertically than horizontally. With the Paladin, they tried something different. It's like a diagonal double barrel, so you would have to adjust your aim diagonally to get both shots to line up. That seems extremely unintuitive. Or maybe this Highguardian tech is just too advanced for our tiny pea brains to understand. And the fact that it's shooting square shells with square barrels is absolutely comical. This is like Starfield all over again. They put the circle into the square hole. Sure, the shells are square, but shotgun pellets are spherical, not cubical. Or maybe they did make the pellets square too. I can't tell. If they did, then that would be hilarious. As we all know, square bullets do more damage. It's very ideal for killing Turks. But sadly, in terms of gameplay, the Paladin is not very ideal for killing anything. I thought the Kraken was bad, but I would take that in a heartbeat over the Paladin. The Kraken isn't that effective, but it can kill things. Meanwhile, the Paladin's damage is closer to an actual Nerf gun. It's got a severe case of video game shotgun syndrome. It has even less range and less damage per shot. That's usually how it goes in video games. The higher the fire rate, the less damage the gun deals. They always have to balance out the DPS value so the fast-firing guns aren't too powerful. I find that logic to be supremely lame and boring. It doesn't make the game balanced, it just makes fast-firing guns fucking suck. Like, oh my god, bruh. You gotta dump dozens of shot shells into one guy at point blank to get a kill. I swear, this gun doesn't even deal damage. It just tickles people with grains of sand. The only time it's ever useful is if the enemy has 1 HP. Besides that, using this gun is absolute torture. To be fair, this shotgun is shooting 410, not a big 12 gauge. So the lower damage and range makes sense. But why would they chamber this gun in 410 in the first place? 410 is for killing varmints, not humans. I mean, 410 can kill people, it's just not ideal. Ideally, this gun should be using 12 gauge, maybe 20 gauge at the very least. It doesn't help that the Paladin has a super goofy spread pattern. Normally, shotgun pellets are spread out in a circular pattern. That's the ideal pattern, so you can maximize the amount of pellets on target. But with the Paladin, it has a wide T-shaped pattern with 5 pellets. There's 1 in the middle, and 1 in each cardinal direction. It's the dumbest shit ever. This guarantees that most of your pellets don't hit. They're spread out way too far. So if you're beyond 10 yards, only the pellet in the middle is gonna land. You gotta be right up in their face to land all pellets on target. The base damage on this gun is already low, and the horrible spread pattern means you're only getting a fraction of its potential damage. I'm genuinely flabbergasted how they managed to craft up a shotgun this bad. Did anybody playtest this? Obviously not, because all it takes is 1 minute of gameplay to figure out that this shotgun is unusable. It's by far the worst gun in Highguard. Dare I say, it's the worst shotgun in video game history. I can't stand this thing. It's a horrible, non-functional design, and it's the worst shotgun I've ever had the displeasure of using in a video game. It's so bad that it's hilarious. I'm putting the Paladin in the legendary meme tier. It deserves to be remembered as the worst shotgun in video game history.
Okay, now it's time for the shotguns. This one is called the Kraken. I don't think this one is quite as bad as some of the other sloppy designs. The color palette is much better, that's for sure. I dig the wood, and I like the color of the metal, and I can appreciate the crude and apocalyptic aesthetic. It almost looks like it belongs in Metro, but it still has that underlying Highguardian art style with a bunch of random details and greebles. They're so close, man. If this gun were slimmed up and simplified, then it would be a pretty good design. The barrel especially could use a rework. Like, why does it have this huge chunk of sheet metal covering the whole thing? It would look much better with a normal round barrel, plus a cheese grater heat shield. Every shotgun looks better with a cheese grater. It's just facts. Another goofy part about this design is that it has a side-mounted angled grip. It's an angled grip. Yo dog, I heard you like angled grips, so we mounted your angled grip at an angle. My god, I can't believe I somehow managed to use that ancient meme twice in a single video. But seriously, why would you mount an angled grip at an angle? The only time you need a canted grip is if you're using a gun with a fat box or a drum that's so wide that you have to stick your arm out like a chicken wing to grip the front end. And in that case, it would be a vertical grip, not an angled grip. I've never seen anyone use a canted angled grip. That's just ridiculous. Especially for a shotgun. You have to constantly pump the forearm back and forth. And this angled grip looks like it would give you an extremely awkward grip. But funnily enough, your character completely ignores it and holds the shotgun normally. Their hand clips right through the angled grip. They pretend like it doesn't exist. So then, what was the point of putting this grip on there sideways? It's just a random greeble that serves no purpose. Well, turns out there is a purpose, albeit a really stupid one. When hip firing, you hold the gun normally, as you should. But when aiming down sights, you tilt the gun over and aim with a dot sight that's mounted on the right side. So they put this grip on here specifically for use with a canted sight. That's gotta be the dumbest shit ever. Canted sights are a thing, but they're only used when you have a big scope on the top rail. The idea here is that you have your main scope on top for regular use, but should the need arise, you can quickly tilt over the gun to swap to your close range red dot. So it's not inherently wrong to have a canted sight. It's a good idea actually. I'm just wondering why out of all the guns in the game, they put it on a fucking shotgun. It'd make more sense to put a canted sight on a rifle with a magnified optic. That should be obvious. Maybe if the Kraken was shooting slugs and had a big scope on top, it would make sense, but it's not shooting slugs, and there's no scope on top. There's nothing there. So they're using this canted sight as the main sight. I don't think the designer understands what the purpose of a canted sight is. They just wanted to give the Kraken a canted sight to make it feel unique or something. But you know what? There's one thing I genuinely love about the Kraken: the reload. Normally, video games will just have you reload a tube shotgun one shell at a time. That works fine, but it's slow. Shotguns can be reloaded much faster by using a technique called dual loading. You put 2 shells front to back and shove them both in at the same time. Basically, that doubles the speed of your reload, and you can double it again gun by quad loading. You put another pair of shells in your palm and quickly insert one pair right after the other. When done right, a tube shotgun can be reloaded in under 2 seconds. It's a mighty useful technique, and it would be really awesome if video games started doing it. We don't have to be stuck reloading these shotguns at a snail's pace. But sadly, I've never seen a video game implement dual or quad loading. All except for Highguard, that is. These guys have extreme ball knowledge. You'd think the first game to implement this tactical modern technique would be a milsim or a tactical shooter, but no. Out of all the games in the world, the only game to have dual loading is fucking Highguard. I think so, at least. If you guys know of any other games that have dual or quad loading, please let me know in the comments. But as far as I know, Highguard is the only one. This game was truly revolutionary. It was too advanced for its time. They had to shut it down for raising the bar too much. The world simply was not ready for peak guard. But anyway, like I was saying, this reload is pretty neat. And there's 4 different animations depending on how many rounds are in the gun. Now that's some serious dedication to immersion. When you shoot 1 time, you quickly load in 1 shell with your left hand. When you shoot 2, you dual load 2 into the tube. Since you dual load, it's the same speed as loading 1 shell. When you shoot 3, you insert 1, then dual load 2. And when you shoot all 4, you start by pulling the forearm to the rear, and you place a shell into the action with your right hand. After that, you flip the gun over, single load 1 shell, and dual load the last 2. Whoa, that's an insanely good shotgun reload technique. I'm dead serious. This shit looks like the point of view of a professional. Dare I say, this is the best shotgun reload animation in gaming history. The technique is perfect, and the dual loading is the cherry on top. I cannot believe I'm glazing Highguard here. This game is absolute ass. I can't stand it. But it doesn't matter how much I love or hate a game. I have to be fair and objective when reviewing the guns. So, all bias aside, I have to admit, these animations are fucking awesome. However, there is a little bit of clipping if you slow it down and look closely. So, this animation isn't fully polished, but I still have to give the animator props for creating such awesome animations. I think the problem is that the gun is weirdly shaped and too bulky. If the gun was slimmed down and had all those greebles removed, then clipping probably wouldn't be an issue. The animator did a great job here. He deserves all the praise he can get. The so-called artist who made the design though, low-key bro, he deserved to get laid off. I also have to mention, why does the shotgun only hold a measly 4 rounds? You get 1 in the chamber and 3 in the tube, but this tube looks long enough to hold 6, possibly 7. What's going on here? Is this shit blocked off for hunting season? No, this is Highguard we're talking about, so the visual design doesn't matter. The rarity of the gun determines the magazine capacity. The Kraken starts at 4, but the next rarity holds 8. Now that seems appropriate, but this variant, you'd think you would quad load to speed up the reload even more, but no, it just repeats the animation loop until you fill up the whole thing. You load 1 shell, dual load, 1 shell, dual load, and repeat that process until you're done. This does work, but I was really hoping for full-on quad loading instead. That would have taken this shotgun to a whole nother level of peak. At the very least, they should keep on dual loading until they top off with a single shell at the end, but I'm guessing these animations were made with the 4-round capacity in mind first. The 8-round variant was an afterthought. I don't think it's the fault of the animator then. I blame this bunk-ass rarity system for screwing everything up. What's truly baffling is that the highest rarity can hold a whopping 14 shells. Or actually, no, it doesn't hold 14 shells. It holds 7, but it's a double shot. So when you pull the trigger, it shoots the same round twice. In classic Highguard fashion, this gun runs on space magic. It's funny, but come on man, at least give it some visual design change like a second barrel so it's not pure bullshit. It would be really cool if the legendary model changed to a double barrel pump, but these guys were like, nah, that's too much work. Besides that, I can appreciate the visceral feel of this shotgun. It feels powerful. It kicks hard, like a 12 gauge should. It's very satisfying to operate, but in actual gameplay, it's pure sweaty ass. Unfortunately, this shotgun suffers from video game shotgun syndrome, so it's a point-blank gimmick weapon. Anything beyond 15 yards, and the pellets evaporate into thin air. Even within its supposed effective range, it's not very effective. Since this game has an atrociously long time to kill, you can't one-pump enemies at point-blank range. Even if you hit all the pellets perfectly center mass, or get a headshot, it doesn't matter. 12 gauge to the head at point-blank is nothing more than a minor inconvenience, I guess. It's not like it was a critical hit or anything, it just hit their stupid Highguardian brain. In reality, 12 gauge at point-blank would splatter brains all over the place. You might be able to get a 2-pump kill if you shove the barrel down their throat, or if the enemy neglected to upgrade their armor. But for the most part, this This shotgun takes 3 or 4 or even more shots to kill. Combine that with the crackhead movement, and my god, it's damn near impossible to hit people in the first place. Like, come on, you can't have a game with insane movement and a super long time to kill at the same time. It just makes the game frustrating, and the guns don't feel powerful. There is no consequence to getting shot. I don't care what the setting is, space magic or not. People should be getting one-tapped by pump shotguns at close range. End of story. Otherwise, these shotguns are completely useless. They get outclassed by SMGs and assault rifles in their own gimmick. Like, what's the point in having a point-blank gimmick weapon if it's not even good at point-blank? It's straight up brain-dead game design. I absolutely despise how poorly balanced this shotgun is. I mean, the whole game is horribly balanced, but this shotgun in particular is an egregious offender, and it's kinda ugly too. Normally, I would put the Kraken in the slop tier, but the animations are exceptionally good. Genuinely, these are the coolest shotgun animations I've ever seen. The animations alone save this gun and give it a lot of bonus points. So I'll be benevolent here. I'll put the Kraken in the some redeemable qualities tier. Other games should look to Highguard for inspiration on how to implement a shotgun with dual loading. This reload is genuinely so peak!
Okay, now we can look at the machine gun. The big rig, they call it. It sure is big, alright. Maybe a little bit too big. I mean, I think the overall size is fine, but they tacked on this big piece of bent sheet metal to serve as the heat shield. It just looks dumb and oversized. A regular handguard and heat shield would look much cleaner. I'm not a big fan of the knuckle guard either. Knuckle guards look tacky and out of place on non-bullpups. It should be deleted entirely, especially since it has a regular trigger guard. There's no need to have both. The open receiver design is interesting. I guess the intention here is to shut off a few pounds to make it lighter and make it cool off quicker, but that would make the gun more prone to failure. Debris could very easily get into the internals and cause it to jam. It seems like the designer did this on purpose to show off the cool moving parts. As usual, it's like jingling keys. But ideally, the receiver should be closed off to ensure maximum reliability. When you clean all that up, then sure, the big rig has potential to look pretty decent. It seems functional, it just needs some tweaks. When it comes to the animations, I really appreciate how they animated the ammo belt properly. A lot of games will just give a machine gun belt a static repeating animation, so even when you get down to your last bullet, you'll still visually have a full belt. But with the big rig, it's all animated. You can see the last few rounds getting chewed up. That's pretty neat. The reload animations look fine. I don't have much to say about them. But I do find it very interesting how the belt automatically gets sucked into the gun by some kind of automatic mechanism. I have no clue how that would work, and it seems kinda unnecessary to make this complicated automatic reloading mechanism, but I can't say it's inherently bad. This is an advanced sci-fi machine gun or something, so I'll let it slide. I also like the overall feel of the weapon. The big rig feels heavy, and it chugs along with a steady fire rate with a fair amount of recoil. It's properly characterized as a hefty medium machine gun. In terms of gameplay, the big rig is a pretty solid weapon. It hits hard and has a relatively high DPS, as it should. My biggest grievance here is how rare it is. Unlike the other guns in Highguard, you can't pick up the big rig from loot crates or buy it from off-brand Captain Price. You can only get it from airdrops, and those only happen like once or twice a match. Even then, the big rig isn't guaranteed to drop, and you also have to worry about the other team trying to get it too. All that means you'll barely ever get your hands on the big rig. For me personally, I played like 20 matches of this game, and I only got to use the big rig one time. And I died right after picking it up because the whole enemy team was trying to get it too. However, my editor was able to use it quite a few times. It does have pretty good performance, but the big downside is that there's barely any ammunition. You only get 2 belts that hold 60 rounds, so that's 120 in total. After that, you can't find any more ammo for it, so your guy just automatically tosses it out. It would make more sense for this machine gun to have 100 round belts. That's the standard for most machine guns, and you should be able to carry 2, maybe even 3 of them. I don't know, man. It doesn't really matter what I suggest, because this game is already dead and buried. That's all I got for the big rig. It's okay, I guess. I don't feel very strongly about it. It's not a great design, but I don't think it's that bad either. It's just kinda mid. So, I'll put the big rig in the mid tier. There's also a rocket launcher in the game. It's simply called the Rocket Launcher. Wow, very creative. I don't know what I can say about this design, bruh. It's got the typical Highguardian art style, so it looks stupid and ugly and has a bunch of random nonsense going on. I don't really feel like breaking this one down in great detail, so I'll just cover the 2 most notable features. Rocket launchers are either muzzle loaders or breech loaders. But with this one, you load in the rocket from the side. You slip it in through this skeletonized folding loading gate thingy. The rocket isn't sealed off in any way. Everything is completely exposed. That doesn't seem like a very safe or sturdy design. As soon as that rocket launches, the exhaust is going right into your eyeballs. I really doubt this thing could shoot rockets in the first place. There's just a big gaping hole in the middle, as usual. The artist sacrificed functionality for the sake of showing off all the cool moving parts to the player. But that comes at the cost of melting the user's eyeballs. Funnily enough, one of the original concepts for the rocket launcher was an RPG-7 with a Highguardian filter slapped onto it. It's kinda basic, but I would much rather have a functional space magic RPG over whatever the hell this thing is. What makes this one interesting is that it uses a MIRV grenade that splits off into a few pieces. Boy, that seems like it would be a great tool for crowd control. Imagine popping off one of these and it wrecks the whole team. That would be awesome, cause the current rocket launcher we got looks dumb, and it's not very useful in game. This thing is so forgettable that I totally forgot I had it in my inventory most of the time. I had to force myself to use it. They tell you straight up in the tutorial that it's a tool for destroying walls, not for killing enemies, so I never really tried using it on people. Knowing how this game is balanced, it would probably suck and do like 50 damage per shot. What I know for sure is that it suffers from video game rocket launcher syndrome, which means the rocket's velocity is comically slow. I don't know what exactly the velocity is, but it feels like 100 feet per second, if that. Either way, it's obvious that these rockets fly about as fast as a Nerf dart. In reality, rockets can travel up to about 1,000 feet per second, which is the same speed as a common pistol round. They are not slow. You could blink and miss it. I get that it's done for gameplay balance, cause getting spammed by a noob with a one-shot rocket launcher would really suck. But come on, the rockets shouldn't be this slow. If you want to stop noobs from spamming rockets, then just lower the splash damage and limit how many rockets they can carry. Obviously, rocket launchers aren't supposed to be used on infantry, but that's not because they're not effective for killing infantry. It's because it's total overkill and a waste of resources. If a high explosive rocket lands 2 feet in front of someone, it's straight up obliterating their legs. Rocket launchers are meant to be used on armored vehicles, but there's no armored vehicles in Highguard, but they totally should. Imagine Highguard with a Battlefield-style game mode where they have tanks and planes and artillery. Basically, just turn this game into Battlefield 1, but it's more focused on the early 1900s steampunk aesthetic and has some magic and shit. That sounds rad as fuck. Gentlemen, I think I just came up with an excellent idea for a new video game. Nobody better steal my idea. I'm copywriting this shit immediately. But anyway, this rocket launcher is turbo lame. I don't think I saw a single person use it, cause it's mostly useless. I was heavily debating putting the rocket launcher in the Fallout 4 assault rifle tier for having such an ugly design, but it doesn't evoke quite enough burning hatred for me to do so. It's bad, but it's not offensively bad like the Fallout 4 assault rifle. The Highguard rocket launcher is just plain lame and forgettable, so I'll put it in the slop tier. Lastly, we have the wonderful Switchback. This gun wasn't in the arsenal at release. It was added in Highguard's first and final update. They had this big roadmap planned out for future content updates, which includes a whole bunch of new guns. But unfortunately, that plan never came to fruition. The only additional gun we got is the Switchback. I'm really glad I got to use this rifle before Highguard shut down. Low-genuinely, I kinda fuck with the Switchback. Seriously, I like the design here. It's not riddled with a bunch of random bullshit and greebles like the other guns in Highguard. The Switchback is simple and sleek. It looks like a gun. It mostly resembles a shotgun. It has a typical pump shotgun style receiver, along with 2 vertically stacked barrels, like an over-under. But functionally, this is a marksman rifle. I actually don't mind the thumbhole stock here. This is a marksman rifle after all, so it's very fitting. It doesn't look dumb and stupid like the one on the Dynasty. And my god, the color palette is beautiful. The dark brown wood furniture paired with the warm brass finish. Oh, it's perfect. It's like peanut butter and chocolate. It's the perfect combo. It really makes me wish the rest of the guns looked more like the Switchback. If these guns were simplified and had more tasteful color palettes, then they wouldn't be so vomit-inducing. Now, the function of the Switchback is a little bit funky. It's a double-barrel, pump-action, magazine-fed rifle / shotgun. It's a combination gun. It's both at the same time.
Combination guns are a real thing, but they're single-shot breech loaders. So how exactly would this work with a magazine-fed design? You would need multiple magazines, but this gun only has one magazine, which is clearly loaded with rifle rounds. When you aim down sights, it shoots one projectile, as you would expect. But when you hipfire, it shoots a spread of shotgun pellets. Where are those shotgun rounds coming from? There is only one magazine that's loaded with rifle rounds, so does the gun know when you're not aiming, and it transmutes the rifle bullets into shotgun shells at the last moment? I don't know, man. There's no mechanical explanation for this. It is simply space magic. The other defining feature of the Switchback is that it's a double-barrel pump action, much like the DP-12. So, you can fire 2 shots very rapidly before having to cycle the action manually. It's a cool concept, but how exactly would this gun cycle ammunition from one box magazine into 2 barrels that are stacked vertically? I'm guessing that's the purpose of the rotating barrels? Somehow it rotates to load both barrels from the single magazine? That doesn't seem mechanically feasible. And even if it were possible, it would be hilariously overly complicated. You see, with the DP-12, it has 2 magazine tubes, one for each barrel. It's not crazy complicated. It's basically just 2 guns shoved into one frame. There's 2 bolts, 2 magazines, and 2 barrels. The Switchback has 2 barrels, but it only has 1 bolt and 1 magazine that somehow feed into both barrels. It's like a conjoined twin with 2 heads and 1 body, but it should be more like a conjoined twin with 2 mostly separate bodies that are connected at the shoulder. Well, if you look a little closer, this gun doesn't load both barrels simultaneously. It only loads and shoots the top barrel. After you shoot the first round, the other barrel quickly rotates into the top position. At the same time, the bolt cycles and feeds a round into the chamber, then you pull the trigger and it fires. So, what the fuck is the purpose of having 2 rotating barrels if you can only load and shoot the top barrel? A single barrel serves the same exact function with far less complexity. It's not like it needs to rotate between shots to achieve the double tap function. A fixed double barrel already does that, and a single barrel can achieve the same effect with a rapid 2-round burst. We also have to wonder, how are these barrels rotating automatically between shots? I don't see any sort of automatic operating system on this rifle, and yet, the bolt automatically cycles and ejects casings after every shot. But after you shoot 2 rounds, you have to manually cycle the action. It appears this gun is swapping between manual and automatic operation for no discernible reason. It also has a charging handle on the bolt like an automatic, but you never use it. You only use the forearm to rack the gun. The animations are really goofy too. The barrels flop and twist all over the place with no rhyme or reason. They even wobble and jiggle like they're made of jello. On your first shot, the barrels spin clockwise 180 degrees, but on the second shot, they only spin 90 degrees and get stuck in a horizontal position for some reason. So you have to pump the action back to finish the job. But when you pump it forward, the barrels spin again, this time counterclockwise. And if you look closely, the bolt closes before the barrel gets into position, so there's no chance these rounds are getting fed. This gun is a certified jam-o-matic. It can't feed ammunition reliably with this hilariously overly complicated, yet under-engineered mechanism. None of the parts are timed properly. Jeez, man. This is a gunsmith's nightmare. It gets even funnier if you try to use the Switchback while on a horse. Since your left hand is occupied by the reins, you're not able to pump the forearm. So, how did the animators solve this issue? Do you take your hands off the rein for a second to pump the gun? No, of course not. This is Highguard, so you use Jedi telekinesis space magic to pump the forearm. That is truly a genius solution. Another quirk is that if you only shoot 1 round, then wait a few seconds, your character will pump the gun anyway. In reality, this would eject an unspent round, but I guess it's a smart gun, so it holds on to the round for you. Anyway, if you try to shoot another single round after that, the animation will bug out and the barrels get stuck in a horizontal position, but then you pump it again, and it goes back to normal. All this rotation nonsense needs to be removed entirely. It serves no purpose. All it does is add an absurd amount of complexity for 0 benefit. But of course, the designer had to make the barrels rotate wildly, because they want the players to be amazed at how good they are at jingling keys. Low-key, it is kind of funny how ridiculous and nonsensical this design is, but if we're taking things seriously, this would make more sense if it was pump action only and had fixed barrels. That way, both barrels would be loaded simultaneously, and you wouldn't need all that convoluted rotation nonsense. However, this would require 2 magazines to work. We have a couple options on how to go about fixing this.
Option 1 is to put 2 box magazines on the bottom, but the barrels would need to be shifted to a side-by-side configuration to make them feed properly. Or, we could keep the over-under configuration, but the magazines would either have to be on the top and bottom, or on the sides. That would look really goofy though. This is quite a predicament, because we also have to figure out how to include the shotgun feature too. Okay, I think I figured it out. The best way to fix this gun is to get rid of the second barrel, make it into a normal semi-automatic marksman rifle, but then add back the pump shotgun as an underbarrel attachment. That way, they wouldn't share the same receiver, magazine, and trigger group. They would basically be 2 separate weapons, and instead of magically sharing ammunition, they should draw from their own separate magazines. This would change up the design quite a bit, but that's the best possible configuration I can think of for a rifle/shotgun hybrid that uses detachable box magazines. Either that, or it could be a simple single-shot breech loader combination gun. That would work pretty good, but I like the magazine fit idea more. My solution would get rid of the unique double tap feature, but frankly, I don't see how we can keep that feature and have the gun be mechanically functional. It's just not possible to have a double barrel pump action fully semi-automatic rifle shotgun combination gun that operates through one action and magazine. Like Jesus, man. That sounds like one hell of a convoluted contraption. If someone could somehow make it work, it would look like a twisted and bloated Lovecraftian abomination. I guess the Switchback could potentially retain the double tap feature, but it would have to be a double barrel lever action, with an underbarrel double barrel pump shotgun. That is possible, but my god, it would be comically heavy and unwieldy. The Switchback is just trying to be too many guns all at once. It should pick a single design and stick with it. It makes more sense to spread these features out across multiple guns, rather than trying to smash it all into a single weapon. Turns out, that almost happened. You see, the Switchback spawned from a double-barrel Ranger concept. This design is pretty legit. It has 2 actions, 2 barrels, and 2 magazines. It's basically 2 lever actions fused together. This sure seems like it would be a fun weapon to use, but in the end, we only got the single-barrel Ranger. The designer still wanted to have a double-tap marksman rifle though, so he put that feature on the Switchback, but he complicated things by giving it the shotgun feature too. The way I look at it, the Switchback should be a semi-automatic marksman rifle with an underbarrel pump shotgun. Meanwhile, the double-tap marksman rifle should be the double-barrel Ranger. It doesn't even need to be a separate gun. It could be a special legendary variant of the Ranger, but unfortunately, that's not how things turned out. Now when it comes to performance, I actually really enjoyed how the Switchback played. It ended up being my go-to weapon. It's a solid marksman rifle with a good damage output. Assuming you can hit your shots, it melts enemies faster than most guns. It can also be used as a shotgun at close range while hip firing, so it's quite versatile. Well, that's how it sounds on paper, but it's far more useful as a marksman rifle. When trying to use it as a shotgun, it's straight ass. It's only usable at point blank range, and even then, the damage output is pitiful. I don't think it's quite as bad as the Paladin, but it's certainly worse than the Kraken. These pellets hit like marshmallows, dude. Basically, you gotta treat the shotgun mode as a last resort, or you can use it when you know the enemy is low on health. And of course, I have to mention the legendary version. Just like the Ranger and Longhorn, the Switchback has a legendary rarity that converts it to full auto. I guess they figured out where the full auto button is. It's pretty epic. And funnily enough, this variant makes more sense because it's not flip-flopping between manual and automatic operation. They probably should have just made this gun automatic from the start. I really like the concept of the Switchback. A double-barrel pump-action rifle/shotgun combination gun sounds awesome, and this one does look good on the surface. But man, the execution on how it functions is absolutely abysmal. It's the most confusing and convoluted gun in all of Highguard, which is quite a feat. I can't find myself to hate this gun though. It's straight up hilarious how absurd it is. It's like the average Borderlands gun. You already know, the Switchback belongs in the legendary meme tier. Or you know what? This gun is so exceptional that I shall place it a tier above, in the coveted GOAT tier. The Switchback is truly the best gun design in gaming history. It's an absolute gem, and I will not be tolerating any Switchback slander in the comment section. It's too bad we'll never get to see the other concept guns brought to life. There's quite a few of them I was looking forward to. Some of the lost concepts include a bolt-action rifle with a big scope and an axe built into the stock, a totally not a vector SMG, a bullpup SMG, a really goofy-looking revolver, a semi-automatic suppressed pistol, along with a suppressed assault rifle. There's also this contraption called the Dragonfly, which opens up and launches out a whole bunch of tiny rockets. They even had energy weapon concepts, like this laser gun, along with some kind of magic Vesper ball launcher thingamabob. The one I like most is the Hornet. It's an integrally suppressed SMG with 2 magazines. It's just, 1 barrel though. So, is it possible to have 2 magazines feed into one chamber and barrel? Yes, let's look at the Burton light machine rifle for an example. It's got 2 magazines mounted on top in a V shape. It doesn't feed both magazines simultaneously. Rather, it chews through one while the other is simply in a storage position. When the first magazine runs dry, you quickly push it up and push the other one down. It's a very visually interesting design, but it's not necessary when you can just use a big drum or a dual mag. This gun was made during World War I, so they simply didn't have the idea for dual mags quite yet. By today's standards, this is a suboptimal and obsolete design. But at this point, it's very clear Highguard purposely picked out obsolete designs because they're unique and cool. As much as I've ragged on these guns, I do like their core concepts. There is nothing inherently wrong with a game making weird and goofy designs on purpose. But if you're gonna do that, it should make sense in the world it takes place in. For a weird sci-fi, high fantasy, mumbo-jumbo setting like Highguard, sure, these goofy guns fit right in. It still doesn't make sense why they have modern-style assault rifles and experimental steampunk-style prototypes at the same time, but the whole setting doesn't make sense. So, at the end of the day, I guess it works. The Hornet especially is pretty neat. I would love to see it brought to life, along with the other concepts. But sadly, that will never happen, for my beloved Highguard has been shut down. This game blows, and it deserves its failure, but I must admit, I would love to see Highguard make a comeback, solely so I can see what goofy curse guns they can come up with. So please, I need everyone watching this video to become part of the Highguard revival movement. Please, I beg of you, Wildlight Studios, just re-release the game and make a few more updates. I need to see how the Hornet turns out in-game. I really do enjoy how silly these designs are. It's really funny to rag on them. Even from a more serious perspective, I like the concepts and the core designs for most of these weapons. I think weird and experimental firearms are cool, but what I don't like is how there's a bunch of boneheaded mistakes on the execution. A lot of these guns aren't actually functional, and they rely too heavily on space magic. But I think the biggest problem with these guns is the god-awful Highguardian art style. It's just plain ugly. It's just not appealing to look at, and nobody wants to play a game that's fucking ugly. But okay, I think that's finally gonna wrap up everything wrong with the guns in Highguard. This has truly been quite an epic journey. I was pleasantly surprised how much I ended up enjoying these shit-ass guns. They're so bad, they're good. I'm really curious what you guys think about the guns in Highguard. Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. If you really enjoyed the video, then be sure to destroy that like button and subscribe to stay up to date on all my uploads. With that, I'll see y'all in the next video.